everyone, and welcome to Pack 75.
Welcome to Pack 75.
Hi, and welcome to Pack 75.
I'm the Pro-Vice Chancellor for Arts and Humanities here at Manchester Metropolitan University. And it gives me great pleasure to open the Pack 75 Viewing the Past and Looking to the Future celebrations to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the 5th Pan-African Congress held here in Manchester in 1945. Our online programme enables us to connect with audiences around the world, and I am delighted to announce that one of our keynote speakers, Kwame Anthony Appiah, will broadcast his speech live from his home in Princeton, USA. We are proud to be working in association with all three Greater Manchester universities and other institutions, including See My World, Contact Theatre, National Black Arts Alliance, Manchester Centre for Public History and Heritage, and the Ahmed Iqbal Ullah Race Centre. Most importantly, we are pleased that this event has had the full involvement of students from across Manchester's universities, participating in interviews, running a Sunday programme, and being important collaborators in the Pack 75 celebrations. It is particularly special that we are hosting this event in Black History Month with the involvement of our students. They have engaged with passion and enthusiasm and will take the learning from these events to future generations. So, thank you for listening, stay safe, and I hope you enjoy the programme of events that we've curated for you. Thank you, and bye for now.
I'd like to say to viewers, you're going to have a really interesting time watching this. We know it's a very different period than what we had originally planned, but we're really looking forward to what will be an amazing online festival of events.
Hi everyone, my name is Kwame Asamoah-Kwarteng and I'm the General Secretary of the University of Manchester Students' Union, and I'm part of the Central Committee planning the Pan-African Congress commemoration. It's very interesting that 75 years ago, the very basic thing that every human right now needs, freedom, Black people had to meet in this building to decide whether we really needed freedom. We needed it, and so they met and they decided that this time around we had to go and capture freedom from the colonialists. So they met in this building. We had young Black activists coming from Africa. We had the Africans in diaspora in the UK and in the US meeting here to decide of it. We have names like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, and the rest who met here. And then they were able to go back, and 60 years down the lane, we had lots of African countries gaining independence, championing the idea that the Black man was capable of managing their affair. Today is the 75th anniversary of the 5th Pan-African Congress that made liberation happen in Africa. So today, we've planned a series of events. So from the Students' Union side of things, we felt that because the activists were young people, the onus also lies on us to also be part of this commemoration, thank them for this very good thing that they did for us, and also look at the way forward, what we can also do to leave our mark in ensuring that people are truly liberated. So we've put together a series of events. We are going to have panel discussions, we are going to have poetry, we are going to have spoken word, we are going to have workshop on diversity and inclusion. We are also going to have dance performances, and what have you, you're going to have music performances as well. So I want you to just stay glued to your seat and enjoy all the events that are going to happen live on your screens today. Our first act is going to be by the ever wonderful Chancellor Jackie Kay. She is the Chancellor of the University of Salford, and also a wonderful and well-celebrated poet, and is going to give us 2 minutes of a poem. Thank you, and enjoy it.
Hello. A number of years ago, I had the amazingly lucky experience of meeting the African-American poet Audre Lorde, and she gave me a piece of really useful advice for me back then in my early 20s. She said, "Do you know something, Jackie? You can be black and Scottish. You don't have to choose." And that seemed a remarkable piece of advice then. It might seem an obvious thing to say now, but now, and all these years later, I've still been thinking about the complex paths that take us to where we are today. It seems that we go on a journey with ourselves, and sometimes it takes us ages to accept different parts of ourselves, whatever that part might be. And sometimes that's caused because other people doubt us, and that doubt begins to erode. And so I wrote a poem called In My Country, and this poem was after many, many experiences of lots of different people in my own country coming up and asking me where I'm from, an experience I'm sure that many people out there have had too. In my country. In my country, walking by the waters, down where an honest river shakes hands with the sea, a woman passed round me in a slow, watchful circle, as if I were a superstition or the worst dregs of her imagination. So, when she finally spoke, her words spliced into bars of an old wheel, a segment of air. "Where do you come from?" "Here," I said, "here, these parts." Seems to me that we need to take all of our parts, all of these multiple parts of ourselves, in order to go forward into the future. We walk along that road that seems at the moment uncertain, and it's forever seemed uncertain, but one of the ways of making our path a little bit more certain is to have confidence in ourselves, and that confidence is hard earned. It comes from actually knockbacks, it comes from having had a sense of failure, it comes from self-doubt. Confidence and self-doubt go together like twins, like success and failure. So whenever you do have difficult times or hard times on your road through life, just remember that the hard times are part of the times itself, and without one, we couldn't have the other. And good luck with everything that you do.
Symphona Tavashti Yusuf Suwa Bolagun. Sunana Vashti Suwa Bolagun. My name is Vashti Suwa Bolagun. I'm from Jos, Plateau State, Nigeria. As Oyibo come. Na as Oyibo come, na in kasala boss. We dey at in jeje dey play. One early momo so, na in dem begin show face. First, na Oga Laws. Then, Nico join am. Before we go know wetin dey ground, dem begin dey dig. Place wey Nanchen say make we no touch. Na the place gone Oyibo like. See me, see wahala. Dem say make we comot go yonder. We never sit down finish. Dem say make we join dey dig. Say e get one money, then they call am tax. If we no pay, we no go see food shop. Like play, like joke, we can't start. Our land no be our own again. Na visitor come be landlord. Nanchen come vex, they swallow people. Old o, young o, pikin o. The matter still dey pain till now. It was at the advent of colonialism that trouble started. We were on our own. One early morning, the colonialists began to arrive. At first, it was Sir Laws, then Sir Nicholas. Shortly after that, digging began. The sacred grove of the goddess was where the colonialists chose. Then trouble began. We were asked to move from our ancestral homes. We had hardly settled on the new land when we were asked to dig. We were told about tax. If we do not pay, we would not eat. Like a joke, we began to mine. We lost our farmlands as the colonialists took charge. The goddess got angry and began to swallow up the young, the old, and infant. The memory still hurts.
Hi guys, welcome to our first panel debate for the 75th Pan-African Congress anniversary event. We're joined by representatives of all of the Manchester universities. So my name is Rosalie Benjamin. I'm a graduate from Salford University. I've recently working with the Salford Education Technology Fund, and I've been involved in quite a few areas of Salford University. We also have representatives from Manchester and Bolton as well. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and we'll go from there.
Hi, so my name is Kwame Asamoah-Kwarteng. I'm the General Secretary of University of Manchester Students' Union. I also pursued my Master's in International Development with a focus on globalization, trade and industry. And I have my research area in cocoa as well. Yeah, so nice meeting you all.
So my name is Bulat Faishala. It's quite long, but everybody calls me Bolu. And I am currently doing my PhD here at the University of Bolton, graduated from me as well, and I was student union president. 2 years ago now, isn't it? Is it? Yeah. 2018, 2019. Yeah, So I'm currently working with international students for the University of Bolton.
My name is Ansh Sachdeva, and I'm the student union president. Currently, 2019 to 21, I'm a sports student. Not all as intelligent as all of you, but I thought sports is the easiest to do. So, yeah, and yeah, I'm looking forward to today's discussion.
We've kind of collated a few questions for this. Obviously, we've got quite a discussion to have. So if you want to start us off with the first question and we can go from there.
Yes, so I think the question for this first panel is very simple. We want to understand what Pan-Africanism, the Fifth Pan-African Congress, actually really mean to us as a people of color and as a youth of today. What does it really, really mean to us? So I think that's going to be the topic for discussion for the first panel.
Yeah, so the first question that you've put from the questions we collated was, in terms of leadership, what have you learned from the Fifth Pan-African Congress that you can use to enhance yourself as a leader today and in the future, which is a brilliant, brilliant starting point for us. So who wants to get us started from there?
As a person of color and as someone come to the country which has faced colonialism, I think Pan-African, what it means to me is it's a feeling of unity that I feel for my friends of African descent who are African. And I learned a lot about it in the UK. I was not aware of it in India. I'm an international student. So what it tells me is it's a worldwide movement. People all around the world. There are people of color all around the world, and it justifies the unity, the power, it signifies that there is nothing like white supremacy in the world. So that's what it means to me as a person of a brown color, and I'm sure you would be able to tell better. Over to you, Kawame.
Oh, okay, yeah, great. So, yeah, so in terms of leadership, like as a person, I have been quite involved in student leadership and also leadership at the professional level. And I think that when I sort of like when I read about Pan-African Congress, trying to understand a bit more on what it really stood for and everything, I realized that in terms of leadership, it told me that as a young person, I should really have a vision to solve a problem. And I should have a solid team that actively believes in that vision and are driven by that same vision. And this, I think, reflecting on the Pan-African Congress, I realized that within the over 450 years of active colonization and psychological oppression, by specifically the British, sorry if I'm mentioning a particular nationality, the British and the likes, because we have the Portuguese and the Belgians also involved in this colonization. They didn't just, come to loot the natural and human resource resources in Africa to set up an awesome future for their generation at the moment, and even the unborn ones. They also deliberately changed and created new governance and social political systems. Okay, that sort of favored the purpose for which they invaded our continent, so that they could really control things. And so Black people didn't just become slaves in their own home. The continuous operation of this unfair system gradually created a perception of competence, superiority, and class being linked to white, and hence the need for Blacks to look up to white people, to becoming like them, to succeed. So the whole psychology of success and everything was defined by that. So everybody looked up to becoming like the white person. I'm sure that most of us will reflect in some movies that we've watched where when you're a postmaster, you are the big person in town, and everybody wants their kids to grow up becoming like you. So and then this same perception was further solidified by the British scientist called Francis Galton, who created the eugenics studies, which actually came to, and he reflected on the pedigree of some of the leading English families, okay, to create a framework in defining, he created a framework on defining who holds superior intelligence, okay, who is actually superior, who has the proper abilities. And because of that, they use that same framework to be able to define Black people as inferior, because it was a framework that you have to fit in. And so using white leading English families to create that whole framework now created a scientific reason why Black people are inferior. So you realize that we, as a Black person growing up, and then not just the systems telling, but scientifically to, if somebody has used the eugenics studies to prove that you are inferior, how possible would it be psychologically to think that you can ever lead, that you can ever be good at what you want to do, that you can ever reach the higher heights that you want to achieve? And so that was the vision of the Pan-African Congress. The Pan-Africanists felt that, no, we are capable of running our own affairs. We are as superior as we would want to be. We are capable of everything. And so they believed that, no, we have to go back and then take power from the hands of the one who thinks he's superior and hence should be controlling us. And so that is the genesis of all these things. So the discussion started from the first Pan-African Congress to the second. So when we got to the fifth one, they said, no, we have to get this thing. Again, just because the vision is to create for the unborn Black people that you are equally psychologically and inherently competent to run your own affairs and be good at what you do. And so for me as a young Black person, that is what Pan-Africanism taught me, that I should have a vision and I should have a problem that I want to solve. Like the way they had the vision of making me right now, I feel that, okay, I can lead. But some time back, I wouldn't have had that inherent ability to think that I can lead, hence even contest for an election. You know, that even currently I'm the first international student to have been the General Secretary of the University of Manchester student for over 159 years. So yeah, so that to me, that is what it tells me in terms of leadership, having a vision, having the active team. And you realize that Pan-Africanism wasn't organized by one person. We had the Dr. Kwame Nkrumahs, the Jomo Kenyattas, the Mugabes, all of them believed in it. And that is why from 1957, when Ghana gained the independence, all the other African countries also gained independence continuously like that, because all of them supported each other. So yeah, basically that is what I can.
Brilliant. Well, I'd like to jump on the end of that, and I think having vision as what your takeaway is brilliant. And I think my personal takeaway from reading and researching about the Pan-African Congress is representation and how important representation is. And I think that's how we have to be leaders, and making sure that in whatever industries that we're in, we are being that positive representation. As I said, like, I'm in the STEM industry, so that's science, technology, engineering, maths, and looking at the BAME figures that are in so many different industries, and you're just not represented. That's the media. As I said, like, I've just finished aviation technology with pilot studies. The pilot industry in the UK is only 7% that are BAME, which is just absolutely horrific when you're trying to be a part of that industry, which means that you have to lead. You don't really have a choice. You have to be the first now. So I think that's one of the core values that they are really trying to teach us, is that we have to take up that mantle, and we have to be those positive role models. Especially in today's society, we've seen so much going on in the US, in the UK, and all across the world, really. So we do have to just continually make sure that we're changing that image of what it is to be a Black person, and that stereotype, and put forward those new role models as the new Black youth, going, this is what we want to be. There's no one way to define us. We're here, we're in every industry, whether that's science, whether that's music, whether that's sport, we're here, we're proud, and we do have something to contribute as well. So we do have to be really thankful that there were these congresses that were making sure that we felt like we had a place, and now we have to keep shouting as loud as we can, to be honest, to make sure that people do see that we are worthy, and that we have something so magnificent to contribute to society, and that when we all come together, we've got a much better place. So yeah, just getting involved in whatever possible. I know that at the University of Salford, I was the chair of the debating society. So we'd have debates with the African Caribbean Society. So having that conversation again, and just being in whatever space possible, and making sure that you're representing yourself. And unfortunately, we're in a society where one person is the whole representation of the Black community, like that one individual can speak for everyone. But I think as long as you're representing yourself and your own experience, and just having those conversations, then that's the way that we can move forward in their spirit of leadership as well.
Yeah, I think you guys have spoken very, very well. I absolutely love the way you guys have spoken. I'm intrigued, by so much wisdom, so much knowledge. I feel like the coming together of like the founding fathers, I would like to get the founding fathers, they came together as change makers, and they've paved the way for the things that we've been able to achieve today. Just like yourself, Kwame, I was like the first international Black. It's like the role is so much like international Black woman, immigrant, to be, the president of Bolton Uni. And Bolton has been here for quite a while. And to think about the reason why I was able to achieve that is beyond me. And Pan-Africanism has shown me that it's all about togetherness and unity. And what I learned from what they've been able to achieve is you have to take control of your own destiny and what's rightfully yours, because no one is going to hand it up to you. Because from what I've learned, it was at the end of the Second World War, they're like, what, we've had enough. Because it was done with the promise that, if you guys come to fight this war with us, we'll give you independence. And that did not happen. So they come and they stood their ground. And I feel like even for us, even having conversations today, and still here, we're 5 years later, and still saying, Black Lives Matter, it should not even be a thing. like, it should matter anyway. And, you know, people trying to like, oh, but why does it, like, we're not saying white life does not matter. We're not saying nobody else's lives matters. We're just saying in terms in which we've been systematically oppressed, our lives should matter. I should be able to create wealth for my unborn child. And I should be able to do that rightfully well and without, you know, being without prejudice, to be honest. So yeah, that's what that's like my takeaway from, you know, what they've done. I feel like they started something that we are able to, it's like a marathon. It's never ending. They started something and they passed the baton to us and we're gonna pass it forward. But we're hoping that as we're growing, the conversations, you know, is getting more welcomed, more is getting listened to better, and changes are being made, not just in the grassroots, but also like in the judiciary system and, you know, every corner of the world, basically.
I would just like to add on what you guys said. Definitely, it gave me a better meaning and understanding and a bit more clarity about how I think about Pan-Africanism, and what it means to me as being from a country which has been oppressed by the British and various other invaders throughout its history. I just believe, as you said, the freedom fighters created a path for us. And it's just crazy to think that few decades ago, people could be arrested for saying what Kwame, Rosalie, and Bolu have said today about expressing thoughts that we can do the jobs that white people do. We can do the, you know, we can do the things that they can do, and we could be arrested for that. So it actually gives me goosebumps thinking about, you know, as what our founding fathers have been through, whether it's, you know, African people or, you know, I can more relate as a person of color because, you know, you had European invaders, British invaders, and we have had multiple invaders as well. And they have kept pushing us back, but the way uh, their effort has put us back on the world map, and you know, you are one of the first few who are doing different things. So I think Pan-Africanism is something that cannot actually be put into words. It's a feeling.
Well, I think that's a really brilliant take, and what we've kind of concluded there is the unity, the togetherness, the representation that it does mean to us. So if it's all right with you guys, I'd like to move on to the next question, which has been a question that I've been kind of asking myself a lot with all of the recent, well, not just recent, but just generally what's been going on in the news, especially with regards to our own civil rights, and especially having the 75th anniversary. My question is, what can we be doing now to make sure that the conversation changes for the next 75 years? Because it feels as though you can watch all of the brilliant things that have happened in the past, in the 60s, after the Pan-African Congresses in both the US and the UK. And it feels as though we're doing the same things, that there's an injustice against us. We're going through the system, we're getting to the end of the system and not getting any progress. So we're protesting, something kind of dissipates, then we go back through that cycle. There's some form of discrimination. We try and fight through the system. That doesn't work. We protest. And then it seems a bit cyclical. So how do we break this cycle so that in the next 75 years, we're not still having the same conversations? Because the Pan-African Congress, they wanted education. They wanted us to have equal rights. And we're still looking at our education now and looking at the education gap and saying, right, look at the amount of people that are getting first and second, like 2-1 degrees that are white, and the difference between those that are BAME. Like, why is there such a gap still in our education? And that was one of their main causes. It was education. And it was looking at making sure that in the workplace we were equally represented, and we're still not there yet. So that's kind of my question. How do we move from here so that in the next 75 years, we're not going, well, we've moved a little bit, but we're still kind of repeating the same things that we have been for a while?
I totally agree with what you have said. Without being crude about the fact, but it would take a long time, because as much as we young people want to realize and push the ideology forward, we have to also consider the fact that it took the Pan-African uh, founding fathers to bring us to this stage. It took them 75 years. But just think about the colonial people who pushed us for hundreds of years, whether it's, as you said, it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's natural resources, whether it's people dying in the mines for businesses and industrialists. So it has to be a long process. And I think discussions like these are a start, a very positive start. And this would give us an opportunity to educate ourselves, to educate people who we know, to we as leaders have an opportunity to make sure we are in educational institutes, we are in students union, you're doing PhD, we are doing different things. We have the opportunity, we have the power to change through education, through unions. And these panel discussions, this is really important, and it's a stepping stone.
I think, yeah, you've asked a very thought-provoking question, and I think that is a question that all of us are supposed to be thinking about. Like, how do we move forward? Because we can't always be demonstrating, because I think all of us are tired of it. Like, all of us really want something to happen, but we can't help but do the demonstration because like nothing is happening, you know. But I think you raised two critical points around like, why do we still have, let's say, the awarding gap or the attainment gap? Yes. So the prejudice exists, because if you've read a lot about it, they would tell you that still in class, especially in British here, in the class in the elementary school, much is not expected of the Black student. And because of that, even when you write psychologically by the person that is marking, the person is not expecting much from you. And so doesn't even psychologically expect you to write anything well. So that's how the thing works, you know. So the thing is so ingrained in the minds that regardless of how you try to put your points across, it becomes a problem. And I even think that even at the university, it becomes worse, especially if you're a Black person pursuing a humanities course, as opposed to those who do, let's say, science-based course, like they say, those who be at the medicine and health and engineering, because there, you know, the answer is very certain. If it is 2 + 2 is 4. So the person can mark you down. But if you are the humanities side, where it's more of an argument, that is where the problem lies, because that is where ideologies play a role. Okay, that's where the person is going to mark you, and it's the person is debating with you on your own paper. So that's why most people will come here, they'll have to write what will lead them in getting the marks, not necessarily what they think is the right answer. And so the awarding gap side is a huge thing. It's not a problem of a Black person. So at the back of my university, I keep telling them that, why are you treating the issues of Black people as if it is their problem? You know, it is as if we need to know something to be able to write the exams and get the right marks. You know, so one task that I put to when we're designing a response to the Black Lives Matter movement as an institution, I told them that we need a nuanced data that tells us the performance of Black people across different faculties, so that we would be able to know that are Black people performing as worse in engineering as compared to humanities, because I know for sure that it's at the humanities side that we are lacking. And that is where the ideologies exist, because there is arguments. It's not 2 + 2, or it's not mathematical calculations and figures where you can't mark my 4 down because I'm a Black person. You know, so that part, it's very hard to, because how do I call it? I think that the work needs to be done on the non-Black people or the non-people of color who still, for some reasons, have ingrained in their minds certain things about us that is influencing their actions. But for us to move on constructively, I think we need to be united. One thing that I have seen is that we are divided across political ideologies. And then Black Lives Matter and then most Black people have aligned our needs to, and we have associated ourselves with political parties and ideologies. And because of that, we are not coming together So we all acknowledge that we have a synonymous issue that affect us as Black people. But because we have aligned our issues to political parties, and we always try to align our frustrations and our issues to ideologies, it has divided, because it's not all of us that believe in the ideology, because like somebody that may be conservative and then somebody that is let's say at the Labour side, they are divided along that line for certain reasons. But the moment you allow race to become the reason why you are joining one, then it divides us further. And so as a Labour Party may be in government, it becomes hard to work with all Black people, because at one point, a cross-section of the Black people are saying that, no, we need to charge higher tax. Then the Black person that is an entrepreneur feels like, no, why should I pay higher tax? You get it? So then we are divided. We don't know. It's like we don't know what to do. So I think we need to disassociate our issues from politics so that we can get a commitment of every single political party that comes to power, so that we can work with them to make sure this thing can be solved. Because we can't solve everything on our own, because like I keep saying, it's not our problem. It is a problem of the other person that doesn't understand us. But when we make the other person feel that because he's part of this political party, I automatically hate you, and then you are anti-Black, then obviously when the person is in power, the person is not going to commit any resources to you, because he knows that politically there is no advantage that he can gain from your side. So I honestly feel that is what we need to disassociate ourselves from political parties and their ideologies and be very neutral in that. However, we can now work with them, any political party that comes to power, to really help us in solving some of these systemic issues that are on the ground. Yeah.
Boli, do you want to just add your final comments to that, just because I can see that we're getting to the end of this segment. So if you want to add your comments, and then we'll wrap it up.
I don't know, I feel like there's going to be a little bit of difference between myself and Kwame. I feel like we could get on at this. I particularly think that I totally understand where you're coming from, and I do agree with you to some extent. In terms of you see it as the other person's problem. It is the other person's problem. I'm not going to take away from that. But I also feel like we should also take ownership of that problem. In terms of like, I think it should begin with myself. It should begin. I should not hear my friend make a colorist joke just because she's light-skinned and be like, no, it's not funny. It's wrong, you know? So I feel like it begins with us having those difficult conversations with, you know, our friends in our households to the extent where we become even more confident in pushing that narrative out. I absolutely love, you know, what you're saying in regards to political, you know, alliance, because this prejudice is embedded, it's eating deep down into the system. I feel like if we start to understand and phantom how deep this is, I feel like it's probably going deep back to my great grandfathers, you know, my ancestors, because, you know, it's eating deep. And when you make that point about us being disadvantaged, even scientifically, because you know how much people appreciate science and respect science, and for somebody telling me that I'm stupid just because I'm Black, or I cannot attain something just because I'm Black. And you know, when people want to say something like, yeah, it's scientifically proven that, and you just saying it's scientifically proven that this, you've already won an argument. Because most people tell you, you can't argue with science, but are we really sure that you can argue with science? Because clearly, if we have been able to reach this level of attainment, and somebody years ago sat on their deck, put a lot of research, did critical literature review, and said Black people, just because we do not fit this particular stereotype, we are not supposed to, you know, hold certain positions, or we are not smart enough, or we're not good enough. So I feel like it's having that difficult conversation and standing up to it. Just because it does not affect you, or because you are not treated like that in that workplace, does not mean you should not stand in solidarity with this person. Because sometimes we like to be like, oh, so far I'm fine. I don't want to. So far I'm this, I don't want to. Like, I feel like it starts with us having this difficult conversation and holding this set of people accountable as well for their actions. So that's what I'm just going to say.
Brilliant. My kind of take is that there isn't an issue that can't be solved without education. I find that education is the causal thing that can change the world. As Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon that we have to change the world. And I completely agree with that. So I think we have to look, as you said, with ourselves and looking at how we educate ourselves again and re-educate ourselves, because the education system in this country, unfortunately, is written by colonizers and hasn't been decolonized yet. And if you can't see yourself represented in your history, if you can't see the incredible feats that Black people and Asian people and just a myriad of people have done throughout our own British history. And we've got to look at British history, not just, oh, the Americans, they had a civil rights movement, and we can quote, you know, you can quote so many people in the civil rights movement, but we can't actually say what actually happened to us as our British history. So we've got to firstly look at ourselves as the individual, and then secondly, look at how we can impact our society as well and re-educate our society. And if we go right back to the beginning, we have to start in the schooling system. If we can get that curriculum showing that, you know, we know Edison's name as the person who created the light bulb, but we don't know Lewis Latimer, who was the Black individual who created the filament. Like, if we actually get to the point where we can appreciate the work of Black artists, Black creators, Black scientists throughout our history, we can go, right, we were here, we made a difference, we can now keep carrying that torch, which is what Pan-Africanism is kind of trying to teach us. We can keep going, keep educating ourselves and society, and hopefully by going through that system, by changing what society thinks of us, by constantly re-educating, we can get to a point where in 75 years, something has changed, whether it's on the level that we all want it to be, whether we are at that equal society point, I don't know. As you said, it does take time, but I think as you guys have identified, having these conversations and making sure that we are re-educating ourselves and society, hopefully we'll have a step from there. Now, I am noticing that we are kind of coming to the end of this half an hour slot. I believe we've got a performance break after this. So if you've got any closing remarks, let's put them there, and then we'll pick this up in a few minutes.
Yeah, one point that you talked about was, people of color not getting enough opportunity and not being as famous as, Edison or someone. But the thing we also have to consider is that they were not given the opportunity to voice their opinions as well. So it's such a great thing if there's a person of color who has invented something and still made a name for himself in those times. So these are some points that need to be considered. And while you were speaking about education, there were things that I would just quickly, we can discuss it later, but quick points about things that affect people subconsciously. Advertisements, racist jokes, the education system, of course. And when a country has heroes like Winston Churchill who committed crimes and killed and caused famines, yes, there is a problem in education. I'm not saying he's a hero for the country, but he's a villain for me and for my country and people of the color. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ash. I feel like that's really good. I would just like to add something as my final points. I just want to say to every person watching this out there, I just want to say one thing. I'll say, know your words and then attack. That's what I want to say. Because we have to, walk into that room like you own it, walk into that room with confidence and knowing that, just because this person has a different color of skin does not mean that they're more intelligent, they're braver, they're smarter, they deserve that job. You deserve it as much as they do. And yeah, you know, like I said, know your words and then attack. So yeah, thank you.
That's so good. Yeah. So I also like to say that I completely agree with all of you. Education is so key. I don't know what else we could do without education. Obviously, the scientific proof that was used is something that came out of education, right? That somebody was able to write it and was approved. And then they could define Black people. I think a lot of people need to go and read about eugenics. That's what it is. That's the eugenics studies. And proving why someone else is inferior and someone else is superior and what people should be looking up to. So I think education is key. I think most of our curriculum require a lot of decolonization, and I totally agree with you. I think there are a lot of things that has been normalized, like you were saying, racial jokes. Part of the things when I did a focus group discussion with the Black students on campus during the BLM, the things they raised was around the historical links with words like blacklist, black market, black sheep, you know, all of them have historical links with colonization, and then how black is used as an adjective to represent something wrong. So you could see that they call something a white lies. White lies means lies that doesn't really matter, okay? So what would be the opposite, you know, like, you know, black market and all those kind of things. So there are a lot of normalization that has happened that we really need to denormalize. And like, I think you talked about how we have to make sure we tell people it's not okay to say certain sort of jokes. But the point is about people even realizing whether it's a joke, it's even racially sensitive or not. You know, so I think it's something that we have to look at. And I think even though we are talking about the issues of Black people, I think we also have to caution how people are always using us in a form of capitalism. Now, companies that are rated high are those that have equality, diversity, and equality departments, you know, and then always the Black people that they are appointing just to show that, oh, we care about Black people, or we believe that Black people are the only ones that can solve equality related problems. And so we have now become a checkbox for companies to be rated high because, you know, at the moment our issues are there, but I see people are still exploiting it again. We're exploiting the fact that we're even talking about issues at the moment for their capitalist gains. So I think it's something I have to be cautious of. So I think we should be talking more about the successes of Black people, you know, some of the things that people are achieving, like, you know, so we don't play the deficit model. We will talk about issues, all right, but I think we should be spotlighting the successes that are people, no matter how small it is. It will make a difference in the life of the other Black person that is not actually seeing any Black person achieve what society right now defines as success or achievements. So I think we have to really be talking more about our successes and find other ways of dealing with our issues. And I think finally, it's about relating all this, and I said, to the Pan-Africanist people. Remember, they came in, they didn't play the deficit model. They came in and said, no, we are capable of running our own affairs. So we are come to take the position. So they didn't come in to tell the world that, oh, you know, you are doing this to us, and because of that, we are not competent. No, they combine all the issues that they are facing, put it somewhere, and they said the first thing for us to deal with it is to claim the position, to let them know we can run it. Regardless of the errors that we make, we will still move on. And then we should get our other fellow Black people they should stop judging the small mistakes and errors of their fellow Black people. Because remember, we just were given the chance. It's not long ago that we're given the chance, but we have become so critical of our own self that even we wouldn't allow a room for error. It's like you are held, if you're a Black person, you are held to the highest of standards, which is too much for someone else having the whole continent on your shoulders. When you pick a position, you have the whole continent on your shoulder, you know? So yeah, so I think we should be very supportive and understand that the same way other races are given a room to make errors and then become better at it, we should be also human beings, that we should also be given the same space to be able to also make errors and become better at it.
Brilliant. Okay, so I think that's a really good place to end the first half of this panel debate. We've had some really good questions there, so thank you for that. And we'll hand over to the rest of the activities for today and come back to this later on.
energies alike. Tripping and me fell into the night, then come out the other side. Dancing in synergy, the rhythm come alive. One more. We go boogie all night. Freestyle.
Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana. Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana. Dawo yami ayikolana, buso wami awukolana. Ilondoloze zuhambe nami. Dawo yami ayikolana, buso wami.
Yo, Stammer. No, the girl in love, you know. Strapline Cleve. Yo, nowadays me now fi say nothing. Whoa, pussy run. You wanna get this, go put it down. You wanna get this, go put it down. Be a bad girl, I bring it come. Me up in a heart, yeah, she rather me. She no call me, she no bother me. Me why you a spend your money? She a get my body. Fly, we fly them out. Champagne, Stammer, we buy them out. Gyal pop when they call them out. Who a talk tough, tell them mind them out.
Hey, styler, we bring designer out. If a cash man have all kind of mouth. Nowadays all dog wear Gucci. So how come some man still China out?
Make money sure, make money stack, make money from weed, make money from crack. Spend money but you have to know when to stop. Cause when money gone in half it come back.
Send money go yard, money come back. Count out the prof, money non-stop.
Hey, we a get the legal money like chop. Make your girlfriend walk me like shop. Ooh, pussy run. You wanna get this, go put it down. You wanna get this, go put it down. Be a bad girl, I bring it come. Ooh, pussy run. You wanna get this, go put it down. You wanna get this, go put it down. Be a bad girl, I bring it come. Yo, them go pick up girl, them can't manage.
I dey hear this sound of it.
To Casa for Kuza. You drew global attention to the sleepy town. Many traveled far and near to meet the Black Queen. The Queen who made young and old, men and women, bend their backs as they scavenged for her. Your worth was explored for decades across many oceans and seas, with despair and hope along the way. The war came to Casa for Kuza. You brought succor to your nation, but misery to your land. As the young fell into discovery holes, holes that swallowed babies and old alike. Oyibo was on a discovery spree. He could not see your other side. All he wanted was the tin to drive a new phase in industry. You were the raw material in Casa. Kuza, 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 they dug you up. In your appearance was the land's disappearance and the death of the once playing ground, where children could play, where grass and green could grow. Your pool was so strong that you left a pool of tears.
Hi guys, welcome back to the second half of this panel debate. We've got myself, Rosalie Benjamin again, representing Salford University. We've got Kwame for the University of Manchester, and we've got Bolu and Anch from the University of Bolton as well. So we're just going to kind of continue where we left off, looking at how the Black community is portrayed in the media, how we talk about ourselves, and we're going to try and end on what advice we would give to ourselves and to the community as well. So how do we want to start off? I think it was the portrayal in the media. So Kwame, do you have any initial thoughts that you want to start us off with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think reflecting on how we've been defined as Black people colonially, and then how, you know, the media right now reinforces some of those prejudices. It has become a challenge. The way previously success has been defined, intelligence has been defined, beauty has been defined, everything has been defined in a certain way that the media reinforces it, and then it is at the disadvantage of Black people. So for example, we have Black people that were trying to feel comfortable in their natural hair, for example, but then it's been defined professionally how hair is supposed to look like. And then definitely it is looking like those of the white race, which now brings a question back to the Black person as to, do I actually look pretty? And even the fact that I can question, you can question yourself that way, but even professionally, you're telling you're not getting that job because you're not putting on a professional hair. So it's not just about how you implicitly feel about how you look. It is how it is explicitly embedded in the requirements that requires you to be able to even work at a professional place. And then it is the media that keeps perpetuating all these agenda. We have had people that have to go and those who have to go and do like a nose job to make sure their nose are looking a bit slimmer. And unfortunately, most Black people, we don't have the slim nose. So it means for you to look beautiful, like the way the media portrays it, it means I have to go to, do cosmetic surgery to make my nose look that slimmer. So the definitions that since colonial time has been put in place, the framework that has been put in place to define success, to define beauty, and all that are currently still being perpetuated by the media. And as a result, makes it very difficult for Black people to fit in. Now, you have to be super confident to walk around with your natural hair. It's like, why do I need to be walking around and I have to look so strong inwardly and outwardly just to feel okay, walking as natural as I want to be? Because to the other side, I would have to change. I have to change to really feel okay and fit in and all that. So the media hasn't been very fair to us. I'm pretty sure currently we wouldn't just blame maybe those who are there. They are as victim as us, because they are a current generation that are a victim of what they might the sort of socialization that they went through. And yeah, as Black people, we are also victims. So you find other Black people that will also condone to the beauty standards, to all those standards that has been defined, not because of it's their fault, but because that is a system that they came to meet. That is what their parents told them to do. Your parents tell you to wear suits because that is what you look good in, and that your traditional clothes is outdated. It's called primitive. You use certain words for all of them, and then we use the right words for the one that is of a Western and European standard. So it's been quite challenging. So we have seen a lot of Black people that are doing good job, like the Pan-African people, especially current women are doing a good job trying to represent Black people so well. But it comes, it comes into the opposition with what the media is also saying. So it leaves a lot of Black youth very divided. It leaves us very confused as to exactly what we are supposed to do, whilst the other side looks a bit more comfortable. So I think the media hasn't really been fair to us at all.
I would agree with you, Kwame. And I was reading a very interesting piece, and it talked about the current impact of media and how they portray third world countries like India, continent of Africa. When pictures of Africa are shown in media, we tend to think it's a continent plagued with poverty, corruption, a barren wasteland filled with starving citizens. Much of Western media covers Africa as suffering and tends to focus on the negative attitudes and attributes and all the problems, which makes us think that is Africa just like that? Despite the existence of the modern life and developed cities, running water and electricity in areas, stories depict that there is, of course, there are factors that cannot be ignored, but they show people what they want to show. They don't want to show the progress. And when these things happen, Africa has its poor people who deserve help. Every country has poor people who deserve help. But when a country, a group of people are portrayed like that, one of our panel member, she said that she's been brought up here, and she said how it was racist games were played when she was young. It just makes you think that how things are back in Africa, and oh, we are much better here. But no, the answer is no. Also, while you were talking about how people are supposed to look and the Western way of looking and the Western way of wearing clothes and stuff like that, that made me think the point, the impact of social media as well. how it is negative, and how in I'll give an example of India, how if you are of a darker skin, people seems to demean you. They sell fairness creams in countries like Africa and India. What are fairness creams? So I think there's a long way to go, and people who portray Africa in a certain way, who portray any country in a negative way, have a long-term impact of people who are descendants, people who are immigrants, who are second generation in the UK or the US. They mean to demean their ancestral land, and it has a negative impact for the people who are to come, their children in the future, in education. And it has a very, very massive impact, because we always say that media is the fourth pillar of democracy. And if media portrays a certain group of people in that way, it's not right.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think representation is one of the most important ways that we can start to change how the Black community is viewed. And I love that all of you guys are international students, and I'm the home student as well, just to kind of see how we are represented throughout across the world. And I think where it comes to the media, it is so important. I think one of the biggest examples that comes to mind is Black Panther, and how monumental that was as an action film that showed that Africa wasn't a continent that is just so poor and dilapidated, but that there are so many different tribes and so many different beautiful things that Africa can bring to the rest of the world. And just a small tribute there to Chadwick Boseman, who carried that role, I know, with such beauty and grace, and was a true role model, not just as Black Panther, but as an individual. And knowing the struggles that he was going through just is absolutely incredible. He was a massive figure for us. And I think we do have to give props to a lot of the strong figures in our media that are trying to work for that representation. One of my personal heroes is Viola Davis, and just some of the brilliant things that she's doing. And she's now at the point in her career where she can start opening those doors as a producer, not just a brilliant actress, but by starting to make the industry more diverse. She said in one of her acceptance speeches that the only difference between white actresses and Black actresses is opportunity, that the only difference is not skill, is not talent, is not where you went to school, but it's just making sure that there are those opportunities so that we can start to change the media and how we are portrayed in the media. And we need to be as accurate as possible and try to break away from these stereotypes. And it's not just in film, but television as well. And looking at like the sitcoms that we're professing as good sitcoms, and the jokes that we just have as background noise as well. I think one of my favorite examples is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and how you're not going, wow, that's a diverse cast. You're just seeing people portraying lives, whether that's that they're white, that they're Latina, that they're Black, that they're gay, that they're straight. They're not people ticking a box. They're just people living lives. And I think we need that as a portrayal in our media, that we're not just people there to be tokens. We're not just there to fulfill a stereotype, but actually we're all just human beings with our own stories. And these are the stories that we need to be professing and making sure that we're accurately portraying, so that we're not just this one two-dimensional Black character, but that we're shown, and that's what the rest of the population, whether it's in the UK or internationally, are seeing of the Black community.
I agree on the fact you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned the movie Black Panther. And just the one little thing that I would like to add is that the irony was that they were protecting themselves from the world, because Africa is portrayed in such a way, and what the colonial impact has been, they just want to protect themselves and keep themselves safe from the world. And they're scared. There's an insecurity, and it was beautifully played, and yeah, just that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you guys, and yeah, shout out to Chadwick. I think I cried so many times when I learned that he died, and to see the amount of what that is done, it made me rethink about my life. I'm not even gonna lie. But Denzel Washington once said, like, if you do not, read the newspaper or listen to the media, you are uninformed, and if you do, you're misinformed. So it's like, what do we do? And sometimes, sometimes you don't actively watch the media. Sometimes embedded in our subconscious that we don't even know that it's actually affecting the way in which we approach it. I'm glad that I'm an international student and growing up, because when it came to like Sunday best clothes and the kind of family that I was, your African attire is your Sunday best clothes. We are wearing it on Christmas, we are wearing it, on New Year. We are not wearing, that one you wear it to school. But when you want to show off and you want to show off as an African person, we are wearing our attire. And I remember wanting to wear an African attire to my graduation, and there was a person in my life that was like, "Oh, what do you want to wear? Like, you should wear something, maybe like." I'm like, no, I want to wear that, because it's like my graduation. I only become having these honors for once in my life, and I'm walking to that stage and I'm talking on that stage with my African attire sweeping the floor like it's my wedding day. I don't care. So, I remember my mom said growing up, she never, her dad refused to allow them watch television. And I know she, thinking about them, when she told me the story, I was thinking, oh, maybe because he wants her to read. But growing up now, I feel like it was protecting her from what, because I'm sure in the 60s and stuff, we were predominantly watching white media back in Nigeria. There was no, I'm sure at that time, the newscaster was not black. They would be white or something like that. So I can see why you'd be like, yeah, no television for you, because you would want her to look within the community and look at the people that are doing things to, put it at the back of their head, because going to places and seeing that people like you work there, me going to a Gucci store and seeing somebody that is black like me working in a Gucci store, that where you have to be prim and proper, and our afro is not seen as prim and proper. And imagine she's rocking an afro. I'm going out the next day and wearing my afro anywhere where I want to wear it. So I totally agree that the media can do better, because you can tell. I remember watching Kelly Rowland one time, and she was saying how her mom and Beyonce's mom always told that she's beautiful and she's this and that, because even as much, but then tomorrow she's watching in the media and she's not seeing someone like herself that is beautiful, and that, as much as everybody's going to be telling you you are beautiful, you're black, you're black and proud and this and that, if you do not see it every day, if they're showing people successful in finance, in aviation, in science, and people doing groundbreaking discoveries, and they're white, how are you telling me that I'm competent and I deserve this and I cannot see it? It's not being shown. Yeah, I feel like there is a lot to be done in terms of that. And, shout out to everybody that is showing, other people that they can do it. Because I remember when I became president as an international student, I looked at it that, like, if Bolu can do it as an international student, we're not even talking about race this time, we're talking about just being, from a different group. If Bolu can do it as an international student, I'm going for it as well, and I can do it. So I feel like representation definitely matters, because I never saw, when I came in as a student, the person that was there was Black British, but it was Black regardless. And when I saw that he could do it, when it became my turn, I was like, I know I'm a woman, but I can do it as well, So I feel like representation is very, very important, and so help us, because we have a long way to go.
I really like all the points that you've brought up there, especially looking at what Black beauty is and how that's portrayed in the media. And Kwame, I really like that you brought up Black hair, because I think that is such a conversation, especially as assimilating into the westernized culture and people going, right, we need straighter hair to be able to fit into this culture, because it's not appropriation at that point, it's assimilating. It's how do we fit in? How do we make sure that we're the professional ones? And when you're constantly told that an afro isn't professional, when that's your natural hair, it's crazy when you're going, okay, and I don't like personal politics, so I will put a small disclaimer there, but how can you tell me that an afro that is groomed, that looks absolutely incredible in my opinion, is unprofessional? But we have world leaders like Boris Johnson and Donald Trump with those hairstyles that are classed as professional. How are those the standards that we're professing? We have to make sure, and I do want to give definite props to anyone out there that is reclaiming their own hair, that is saying that this is who I am, this is me, because it is a statement. It is showing the world who you are. So make sure that whatever you're doing with your hair, that is beautiful, that is authentic, and I hope that you haven't come across any criticism. And it really does pain me every time we see young girls, especially it affects me when they're barred from education because of their natural hair. And I've seen so many reports of young girls wearing their natural braids or having their hair braided, and that being told that they're not allowed to go to school today because it doesn't conform with their dress code. And as I said previously, I think education is the most important thing. So if you're being barred from education because of your hair, you're not appreciating the amount of effort, the money that's gone into black hair, the time that's gone into black hair, the importance of black hair. You're completely disrespecting it. And I think that's a really important point when we're talking about our portrayal in the media and making sure that we do focus on what is black beauty and making sure that we're appreciating everything and saying that you can't take this away from us anymore, that this is ours and this is what we need to profess to the world. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of an overview of that question. I think we should now move on to the next one, which is how do we kind of fit into the black community, and what messages would we give to the black community on how we move forward and work together? Because the black community isn't perfect, and I think that's really important to discuss as well, that we're not blameless. Obviously, when it comes to society and some of the atrocities against us, we've got our own histories there, but we have to be a united front as well. And there are a lot of issues that us as the black community need to address as well. So I think that's the next stage. If you've got any comments, I'll put that to you guys there.
So I think, again, that's another thought-provoking question, because definitely there are a lot of things happening within the black community that needs to be talked about. But I think, you know, it becomes very challenging when the thing is inwardly driven. Like it's most of them are things that, yeah, you wish the person would change, but like, you know, it's like me telling somebody words today to change things that he or she has picked up from day one that they were born till now. And then remember that now the world has become an argument. The world has become a debate. And so we have people that are already contesting. So we have within the black community, we have those that contest that slavery even happened. You know, we have those that are contesting the impact of slavery. We have those that are contesting that you talking about colonization is just a defense mechanism or an excuse. You get it. People feel like change can just happen overnight. And so why are you relying on those things? Talk about it. And it is because we have some of the black people that are privileged to be experiencing life in a different way. And so they constantly think that, you know, success is all about you. We agree to that. It's all about what you do. But like Bolu said, you know, like Bolu quoted something that is she called Viola Davis?
Yeah, no, I quoted Viola Davis and just saying that it was opportunity. It was
just an opportunity, you know. So And then the reason why we are unable to gain some of these opportunities are the systemic things that has happened. You know, it is about when the person sees, like, if you're a Black person, you should be 5 times better before you can get a particular job. You know, it's like when I am going to an interview, I have to look real prim and proper. It's like I have to do a whole lot to try and look good according to the standards of society. So I think that the Black community needs to come together. Like, I think one of you said that it's not about whether you are experiencing life in a different way. Maybe you are privileged to have everything working well for you, but it doesn't mean that the reason why others are suffering is because of just them. We agree that some may be lazy, and it is within every other society. Every other society, we have lazy people. When I came to the UK, I never thought in my wildest dream that I will find people sleeping on the street, homeless people, because these are people that I have never experienced in where I come from in Ghana, that we actually have people sleeping on the streets. And left alone in the UK, that is supposed to be more superior, more richer, more civilized, because they brought civilization, like it has been acclaimed, more modernized, to have people sleeping on the streets, to have people that will beg me, a Black immigrant, for money. You know, so these are some things that other Black people are just supposed to try, especially those who have stayed here, to understand that when they are showing you the things, on the media about how we are back home, just look at internally. How do you see them here? And how do they show those things again in the same TV that you watch here? You see? So I think that is what we are supposed to use to sort our difference and understand that we have one issue that binds all of us together as Black people. Let's put our ideologies aside. Let's put how we are experiencing life aside, and then go back and pick that collective way of living that Black people are known for, or people of color are known for, because I know how Indians are also very known for being very collective, family-oriented, and that is how Black people are also known for. Like, we are also very family-oriented. We care about the next person, even the person that doesn't, is not in our family. We still care about the person. It's in Africa where you see maybe somebody who goes out of their mind and maybe goes naked on the street, and you see women removing their clothes to go and wrap around the person, because even though the person is not part of their family, they still think that the person doesn't deserve, for other people to see their nakedness. As in, like, the person doesn't deserve to be seen naked outside. You see, so I think these are some of the values that we should pick up. And then all those things, we had those values because we put how we experience life aside and try to help and bring others up, rather than joining the world that is now a debate and then being at one side of the debate and leaving the other Black people at the other side of the debate. And then we keep debating, and then it helps the prejudice to still exist, and then it helps us to not go anywhere. So I think it is about coming together, putting our differences aside, and then joining hands to fight the very thing that affects us as Black people.
Yeah, that was absolutely well said, Kwame. Thank you very much for that. I was just gonna say something, because I think moving forward, we do have to look inwardly, and we do have to look into ourselves, because you even see, like, in the Black community, you hear people like, the way Black people are, or you are a Black person. And then you get people make remarks like, like, you're not like, I like the way you are, you're not like Obiola. And then you yourself open your mouth to say, oh yeah, I'm not like other Black people. What does that even mean? What does that? I'm not like other Black people. Like, I make it make sense, because it doesn't. So, having things like that and looking at, watching out for each other, because as much as, I'm sure there's a white person that will fumble on a job. You don't see people saying, no, I'm not other white people. They take their L's like that. The L's, they take it. They never deny somebody just because, this person is like of a different race. And this brings us back to when we were talking about politics as well. you know, and not trying to pick a side. Because the fact that, you know, Black Lives Matter is even in debates is ridiculous. The fact that I have to explain to you why I should not be shot on the streets, why I deserve to be paid an amount of money, why I deserve to graduate. You know, you come into university with the same grades as a white person, you know, you're basically living life almost the same way as a white person, and then while graduating, you know, one person is getting first class, the other person is getting third, even pass or something, or I call it thanks for coming, because, you know, when you don't even get like the degree and you get like a diploma or something, like, thank you for coming, you know, we saw you came, thank you very much, you can go now. You know, those kind of thing, and it's ridiculous, like, what happened? What happened? And that's because there's already systematic racism, there's already systematic oppression, and there's this prejudice that, and like Kwame said, you know, going to an interview and having to make sure that you're like all that, and then you see somebody strolling, just their hair in a messy bun, you know, when we used to have our hair messy, they call it unprofessional, but now there's something called messy bun all of a sudden, and it's supposed to be cute. So those type of things, I feel like we have to challenge ourselves and say no is no. I'm not going to sit down there and somebody is making a joke. I'm like, oh no, I didn't mean it like that. You know, I didn't, like, we have to talk, and if we also see our fellow persons saying something wrong, like, oh, I feel like sometimes it's Black people's fault. Hello. It's that you should not even sit down there and open your mouth and say, I also think like it's Black people's fault sometimes, you know, the way, like, just shut up, because we have had over 500 years of, you know, colonial, you know, masters and colonial rulers, and you expect us to change. Like I said, my grandma, and it's so funny, my grandma is older than Nigerians' independence. Don't let anybody tell you like it's a thing of the past. Black people should just move on and should just go. We cannot just move on when we are still faced day in, day out with this problem. When it still affects, you know, me going to the shop, me having somebody followed at my back because I want to buy something. You know, so those type of things, I feel like, you know, we should hold people accountable. We have to start holding each other accountable. We have to start holding the media accountable and calling out people. I saw something about Meghan, the Duchess, and I saw her, like, when she was young, she wrote a letter to a company saying, you know, talking about soap. And I'm like, imagine we saw something wrong and we wrote a letter to every company. Each and every one of us saw something wrong and always write letter. Even if we feel like it's definitely gonna make a change one day. There's always going to be a change, and we are the change. We should be the change in the world that we want to see at the end of the day. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel that you have summed it up all, but I would just like to say when I was researching for the following discussion, I was going through a Greek philosopher's quote, and it said that he's called Aristotle or something. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He said that men will be always superior than women, and that is the ideology that the British put into, you know, while they ruled our countries, while they ruled the continent. This was what they followed on. They talk about India not being sanitized, Africa not being sanitized enough, women not being treated equal. But Africa was a thriving land. India was a thriving land before they arrived. I know I'm shifting away from the topic, but it all contributes to systematic oppression of why women still, and, you know, again, I'm shifting away from the topic, but it's all something that has been started by them. It's all something that is started by the Europeans. It's all something that we have to hold them accountable for. So Well, we have to correct people, whether they take offense to it or not. If there is a racial joke, it's not a joke. It's something that needs to be corrected, even if you're not friends with that person. You need to keep in check yourself. If you are a part of it and you're laughing on that, you are wrong as well. So, as Bolu said, what Denzel Washington said about media, if you read, in informed, or you're not informed, and if you read, you're disinformed. So it's just funny how it functions. And but we have to correct it by ourselves. And I remember you were speaking on a funny note. You were speaking about braids, and I wanted to get them so much, man. But they said my hair are lot like that, and I was so disappointed. So yeah, hopefully I can get them one day and grow them big enough. But I swear I have asked my friends about getting them. I want to get them.
That's really cool. I think one issue that I've found with the Black community, and I don't know whether you've seen this as international students, but within the home community, it's this almost battle to be Black enough. Like that question of, are you Black enough? And especially as I said earlier, I was brought up in a predominantly white environment. So a lot of my teaching was based on white history. A lot of my friends are white. The diversity wasn't where we'd want to be, and isn't representative of the demographic of Britain. And this constant struggle of, if you're articulate, are you Black enough? If you're not wearing things in a Black way, if you're not having the stereotypical dance, food, whatever, this constant criticism that we put on ourselves is not allowing us to move forwards. And I think that we do have to just embrace Blackness is a spectrum, and that everything on that spectrum is beautiful. And if we're not fighting each other, then we can actually start to fight some of the issues that are affecting us. So if we're not calling each other out so much, then maybe we can move forwards. And remembering, as Kwame said earlier, that we are all human beings and that we do all make mistakes as well. And I find that sometimes hurt people. So as the Black community is a minority that has been disenfranchised for so long, we sometimes are quite abrupt to the rest of the world as well, and don't realize that sometimes the Black community can be quite homophobic, can be quite dismissive of mental health issues, can not be the most feminist organization, and that actually what we're all fighting for is equality, that we're all minorities. That's why Black Lives Matter is a statement, because we're not saying, as Boli said earlier, we're not saying that other lives don't, but we're a disenfranchised community, and we actually need to stand up and help that community at the moment. So making sure that we're all fighting for equality, whether that's for feminism, LGBTQ plus rights, whether that's for mental health, or whether it's ageism, racism, whatever the issue, we need to remember that we are one human family, and that the Black community is a massive part of that. So I think we're kind of coming to the end of this debate. So I think
what we pick up on one of the.
Oh, go for it, and then we'll kind of have a bit of a roundup.
Yeah, sorry. I think you made some very, very valid points that I wanted to sort of touch on. I think, because the systems has made us refuse to understand the experience of the different variety of Black people, if variety is the right word to use. So like you see, we let's say I directly came from Africa. We have another Black person that was born here. And then even getting the understanding that why do we have other Black people that are born here? The slave trade caused it. It caused it. So me staying back home in Africa, do not understand your experiences as someone, a Black person born here. And then a Black person here, because of the media here, doesn't give you the chance to understand me. So when I come here, and then you are, let's say, behaving in my terms called white, it is because I am used to you know, the Black way of behaving, the Black way of eating, the Black way of dressing. And I'm coming to meet another Black person who is not doing like that. So subconsciously, I forget that, no, it's not all Black people that were born in Africa or that were born and trained in Africa. We have Black people that came here. So how have I, even the one coming from Africa, learned that we have other Black people here who may not necessarily know our culture the way we expect them to, or the way that we expect them to learn it?
Definitely, that is a brilliant way of looking at it as well. And knowing that, like, my heritage is Caribbean, yours is African, and bringing both of those aspects to the table and sharing what we have and going, this is what I can bring, this is what my food is, this is what my dancing, my culture, and sharing it with you. In the same vein, I am British as well, and what is British culture? What can we share together? And I think it is in that spirit of unity, coming back to what Pan-Africanism is that spirit of coming together and making sure that there's equality for all of us. So just as a final point, a really good question was, what advice would you give either to the Black community or just society at large as how we move forward? So if you've all just got kind of 1 or 2 sentences just to finish this off, of what your advice would be.
My grandfather always used to say this growing up, and he still says, we breathe the same, we bleed the same. So that's all I want to say. We all are humans. There are good humans, there are bad humans. There's no black bad human, there is no bad brown human. There's just bad people and good people. That's
I think, yes, so my final words will be that unfortunately, Black people, we are at the position where we have to do a lot more. Unfortunately, things are more systemic, things are more ingrained. So again, even when the other person fixes its problem to us, we still need to do a lot more. So I believe that we need to sacrifice more to be a positive role model in our own society. So some things are listed there. I said that, okay, we just have to make sure we are efficient at work. Unfortunately, we have to make sure we are always efficient at work so that we could achieve things that could make the other Black kid that is coming up feel very proud of us. We have to move into entrepreneurship. Let's own our own businesses so that we can also we can easily provide employment to our own people, because definitely we wouldn't judge someone else's hair as not being professional. So I think we have to really go into that. I think we have to invest rightly, because, you know, a whole lot of what colonialism brought was classism, you know, and different definitions of exhibiting how successful you are. So when we make more money, we start to buy the bigger cars, buy the big brand shoes, you know, and all that. So let's invest rightly and support others unconditionally, you know, because that is something that also moves around, where other Black people, they claim that other Black people do not want to see others grow and all that. Yeah, so I think we should remove classism also from our mindset, and also be committed, lastly, to be committed to the Black race. To be very committed to the Black race. That's the only way that sometimes, even when we think we are successful, it can help us put our success aside and also help those who are in need so that they can also rise up and become like us.
Yeah, so thank you to Ange and Conrad. I would just like to just add that, you know, to always remember that you're an embodiment of greatness, regardless of, you know, what anybody tell you. I always like to know your worth and then attacks all the time. And one thing that I would also like to say is that we should, you know, unlearn some things and, you know, re-educate ourselves, and just to know that, you know, the world is our horizon and the sky is our starting point. So
that's lovely, and kind of covers what I was going to say in the similar vein, that my advice would be to educate yourself firstly, educate others, and to know your worth and know that you are worthy, and just to support each other, that we are one family. We shouldn't be arguing and dividing ourselves, but coming together as one human family, rather than all of these different divisions. So I think that's a brilliant place to end this. Thank you so much to all three of you for your brilliant contributions. I think this has been a really constructive debate and a lovely panel conversation. So again, thank you to you all. And if there's anything else, just get in touch with all of us and we can sort things out from there.
Fill my head with smoke, now I can trick the mirrors. Walking on my grave, I feel those shivers in my spine. Ringing I decline, I need space and I need time. You can't find both, you can't find. Designer like I'm blind on me, money in my mind. On the fiber you still buy, all this money isn't mine. Heard it through the grapevine, money on my line. Running out of time, now I'm running out of time. Ay. Speak but the word isn't true, I keep all the make-believe in a tourniquet. Ay. Feet hit the curb again, people out of shore forget. The sea ain't even sure it's wet. Liquor ain't cheap, why I keep getting more of it. Shirley on my line said I'm born for this. Now they're in Charlton singing gospel, I'm here chewing on some chocolates. Pray for me, liars wanna flog me a dub. Waves across the street keep washing me up. I gotta be clean, they just want a product to touch. I drop off a bleed, nobody's wanna be us, they're knocking their knees. Ay. No cotton picking now, hit me up like Scotty for beams. You at the bottom it seems, I'm on top of the screen like, hey. Pearls look purple as Ursula. I was in deep sleep but I'm here for you. In my dreams trip on my feet, flicker the furniture. Get rid of that 3-6 from my circular. I need 9 nights for the nurturing. Get rid of that 3-6 from my circular. I need 9 nights for the nurturing. Get rid of that 3-6 from my circular. Or louder Equiana niggas Oxford artful. You still here bleeding over lost bravado? Me, I'm on the throne moaning occupado. They wanna see me dead. I turned off the GPS when Jesus wept. Wonder where all my people went. Counting up the colours from a crash course. What does yours stand for? I was on Stanford, then I hit T up 24 Langshaw. 3-6 in my circular. Getting rid of that 3-6 from my circular. Getting rid of that 3-6 from my circular. Fill my head with smoke, now I can trick the mirrors. Walking on my grave, I feel those shivers in my spine. Ringing I decline, I need space and I need time. You can't find both, you can't find. Designer like I'm blind on me, money on my mind's on the fight, but you still buy. All this money isn't mine. Heard it through the grapevine, money on my line. Running out of time, or I'm running out of
The sign. The sky turned dark and gloomy. The small footpath had long grown grass. An old dead squirrel lay in the bushes. The smell swished past my nose. There was an old car along the highway. Thorns and thistles got hold of my dress. I saw the pond at the other side. In the distance was the heap. The water had become brown. Maybe children had come to play, or some Fulani cows came to take a bath. Sometimes it was the dredging machine. I loved to go play by the water, where tiny fishes would swim at the top, with the croaking of frogs in call and response. That perhaps was the sign.
Hi, my name's Rosalie. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Salford, and I'm here with Joe Purves, the Pro-Vice Chancellor for Academic Development at the University of Salford. So I'm just going to ask her a few questions about how the university and universities in general should be striving for equality and implementing anti-racist agendas. So thank you very much for joining me, Joe.
Thanks, Rosalie.
No worries. So the first question is, what should universities be doing in order to support decolonising efforts in higher education?
Well, I think there's a huge amount that we can do. And actually, personally, for me, I don't like the word decolonisation because it sounds like we're taking something away when actually we are putting something in and expanding our knowledge. And for the academic community, it really is what we should be about anyway. We have, in the UK education system, we've always said that we teach critical thinking, and I think what the decolonisation agenda is telling us is that actually we haven't really been doing enough of our own self-criticism because we haven't broadened out to alternative views of the way that we teach things, and it's very important that everybody that is teaching looks at what they're teaching and really considers, is there another side to this that we don't look into? We're just looking at it from our own historical perspective. So there are huge amounts that we can do, and quite often I think scientists in particular might have problems saying, well, it's science, how do I decolonize the curriculum? And it does take some thought and some consideration, but there are, for example, it's not just about bringing in say BAME scientist work into the curriculum, although that is clearly important, but it's say if you are looking like something, the situation we're in at the moment, epidemiology, the how epidemics start, if you're looking at, for example, I heard a great example the other day of looking at epidemics in Africa and how they started with smallpox, and whether actually they started because the colonization at the time moved communities into areas where the local community knew it wasn't a healthy place to be. Right. And that's how the epidemic started. So it's learning, it's going back into the history of these things, making sure you present a 360 view of what's happening, and understanding that at the moment what we have been doing is really presenting white knowledge as the knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's only one part of the story.
Yeah, definitely. That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So my second question is, what are universities doing to bridge the BAME attainment gap?
Again, I think this is something that universities have been looking at, and it's not an easy project to identify. There's no quick fixes, because we have to really understand what the root cause is of the problem. We at Salford, we talk about it now as a BAME award gap, because we don't think it's attainment sounds like it's the students are having problems attaining. It's for us, it's not that. We need to move it away from it being a student problem. It's an institution problem.
Right.
So what we are doing is looking at things like, have we got a representative academic body? So does it reflect the student body? Can students relate to what is happening? Going back to the decolonisation of the curriculum. Do students feel like they all have an equal say in what they're learning? Understanding the student voice, and knowing that they have role models, so that they can see what is relevant to them. So why would you think, if everybody around you that is learned is a different colour, why would you connect with that as a possibility? And of course that then for us is a problem in terms of attracting academic staff from BAME communities, because they don't see that as an option, and actually we want to attract more. So so that's really important to us, I believe. It's about making sure that we have mentorship, and employability. We really look after the employability of our students as well. So that's getting mentors from outside the university as well as inside the university, and putting the resources in to work out how culture and experiences shape our students' perceptions of themselves and of others, and helping students progress into HE as well from underrepresented communities, and making sure that they can see it's for them, and you know, the opportunities are equal for them.
Yeah, definitely. And getting into the school system as early as possible is probably one of the most important things that universities can be doing. And you've kind of touched on it a little bit already, but moving on to the last question is, how can universities respond to the question, why is my professor still not Black?
Well, I think, as I said, it's in a lot of cases now, it's about making sure that we have a pathway through our career progression for BAME members of staff. And for us at Salford, we are really starting to address that by looking at how we recruit and retain our staff, and looking at a different way of recruiting. So making sure that our advertising is inclusive, actually going to specialist agencies that can help us find staff from underrepresented groups, and then making sure that there is a progression track. So we're setting targets and KPIs for our academic schools for their diversity, to make sure that we everybody knows that they should be working towards a particular, you know, attainment, that they have got steps that they need to get to. Things like changing the interview process, making sure that we look at have a diverse interview pool, making sure there are people of colour on there, making sure the gender is there, and actually if it isn't, we go back, we don't go through recruitment process, we go out to advert again and make sure that we get that diverse population in, and that there are opportunities there. I think the looking at how people progress through the grades as well is very important. So we do actually now have quite a few BAME professors, but we have problems at lecturer stage, and that's the getting in the young academics and getting them through. So again, it's the importance of making sure there's representation and a pipeline of progression all the way through, and that people don't leave because they feel they have a future at the university.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Brilliant to see that the university is actually putting steps to make sure that throughout the whole process, right from the beginning of education right to the end, that there are some opportunities there as well. Do you have any final comments for us, Joe, about what the university is doing, or what other universities should be doing, just to make sure that we are implementing an anti-racist agenda throughout the university?
And I think, yeah, I would never say that we have all the answers. It's actually, I would say that we're at an early stage of addressing this. And the big thing for us as a university is to not be afraid of the agenda and to talk about it openly. Yeah. Doesn't matter if you're white or if you're Black. The other thing is that this is not a BAME issue, it is a white issue. We can't let our BAME staff take on all of the work on this. It's important that everybody takes a part in this. For me, one of the really interesting things has been the resources that, for example, our BAME network has put together.
Right.
They've got a reading list. Our library's put together a resources list of reading and films. And we're looking at how we change our equality and diversity training, because I think it's been quite functional in terms of what we have to know legally for EDI issues, but that doesn't bring it to life. Personally, for me, I like to watch films. So for me to watch things like The 13th or 12 Years a Slave, you start to understand the context, and that really brings it home to me. People will have different ways about how they want to learn about it. So it's for everybody to get engaged. And I think that is the only way that we can really move forward.
Yeah, Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Joe. And just seeing that our university especially is making sure that our agenda is as anti-racist as possible, and making sure that you've got either the opportunities to progress further or to find that education for yourself is really important. So yeah, thank you very much for talking to me today.
Thanks, Rosalie.
Hi guys, welcome to the second panel debate of the day. Again, my name's Rosalie Benjamin. I'm a graduate from the University of Salford, and I'm now working with the Salford Education Technology Fund. I was also the chair of the Debating Society and have been prominent in the SU, and we've got some SU presidents at the moment. So this debate will focus mainly on what the universities are doing in response to some of the issues and our views towards the Pan-African Congress. So that's a little bit about me. I'll pass on to Kwame. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Kwame Asamoah-Kwarteng, and I'm the General Secretary, which is the equivalent to a president, at the University of Manchester Students' Union. Again, I studied Masters of Science degree in International Development with a focus on globalization, trade, and industry. And it's wonderful to be part of this team. Yeah, so I'll pass it on to Ansh.
Hi everyone, my name is Ansh Sachdeva and I am the Students' Union President at Bolton SU. I have done sports coaching and I am looking forward to this debate. I'm really interested in topics that, push your thinking and educate yourself and learning from people about topics like, Pan-Africanism and stuff like that. So looking forward to this debate, this discussion.
Hi everyone, my name is Bulat Faishala, known as Bolu. I graduated from the University of Bolton doing accountancy. I was the student union president for 2018-2019, and I'm currently doing my PhD, and I also work at the university with international students.
Brilliant, thanks for that, guys. So I think the first thing that we should have a bit of a chat about is what the individual universities are doing with response to the core values of the Pan-African Congress and with response to Black History Month, which is obviously October. So I'll start off there just as a little bit of a representation of what Salford University is doing. So we've got the creation of the Black Student Network. Obviously, we're in very strange times and everything's online. So we're creating that network so that BAME individuals can come together and just have a safe space there as well. Then we've also been reaching out over our social media. So the university did put up a post, especially when we were seeing some of the atrocities in the US, making sure that we are connecting to our BAME network and just making sure that we're listening rather than telling them what we're doing all the time, and just asking questions and saying, how can we be better? Then throughout Black History Month, we've got some TED Talks that are going on. We've got a panel debate, and we're creating a network for microaggression awareness, because I feel that that's quite an interesting development that the university is putting forward, especially as in the UK, racism's slightly more polite, and sometimes it's slightly more difficult to call out racism. It's not as overt as in other countries. So by having some form of awareness of what the different microaggressions are, then hopefully we can educate and get rid of those, or just recognize that those little things are dog whistle and are actually offensive and racist. So by calling those out and just making people aware of what those microaggressions are, we can kind of move forward from there. I think the last thing that is really interesting that has come from the library is that they've created a full reading list just of Black literature, talking about colonialism, just signposting to some really great resources to make sure that people have access to re-educate themselves on Britain's past, what's going on in the US, and just basically making sure that Black history isn't just for a month, but is all year round. So that's a really great resource, and it's available at the library and online, which is especially important right now. So those are a few things that are going on at the University of Salford. Kwame, do you want to tell us what's going on at Manchester University?
Yeah, so we've been doing quite a lot. This year we took a different turn. I think most times we are tired of sending surveys around. Students want to be talked to. We want to really understand, because sometimes the issues that Black students face can't just be expressed in writing. You need to really understand the body language and understand the expression that they give to you. So we did a focus group discussion to really understand this. And then this was a response to the the death of George Floyd, for example. So we were able to speak with them, and they came up with key issues that surrounded their experience in the university and even their experience with the Students' Union, because I was keen in understanding what their experience are with the Students' Union. And all of us co-created the recommendation that we felt the university and the Students' Union should do. And then I'm very happy that I'm part of the rapid response group with the university. So we set up a rapid response group centrally to be looking at these issues that the students raised out of the focus group. And then we are making some progress on some of the issues that has been raised, especially from the Student Union, for example. We named our building Steve Biko, but he was one of the anti-apartheid fighters. However, we never had the name on the building, and the Black student had concerns over that. And then right now, I can assure you that the Student Union is now trying to put a plaque in place to really give the respect that is supposed to do to the name that was given to the building. So yeah, a lot more has been going on. And we've also put on a lot more programs in place. And this time, it wasn't just the Student Union putting programs in place. Again, we met with our societies, the African societies and the Black-based societies, and then we discussed with them the kind of programs they'll be interested in the union organizing. They gave us the list of the programs, and we told them that we wanted them to be the one leading it. So even though the SU is organizing it, we want them to be the ones leading it. Yeah, so we have all of them in place. Everything is going on very, very well. Our societies are very much pleased, and I'm very happy that we are working in close collaboration with the societies and the students.
Brilliant, thanks for that. Ansh, do you want to tell us what Bolton University is doing?
First of all, it's great to hear from what Rosalie and Kwame are doing at Manchester, and you're representing Salford. So, just like our peers, our university, I'm really proud to say that I have Bolu with me, the ex-president, and we have been, first I would like to mention, we have been a testament to what the university's processes are in terms of considering the diversity at the university, whether it's the education committee, whether it's the Senate, whether it's the board of governors. We have seen that how students of color and students of all, different diverse groups have been included and have been given a voice. So I would like to start off with that. Considering, I believe this year has been monumental in terms of people realizing how important it is talking about racism and talking about Black history, and so we are, as as everyone knows, that we cannot do much on campus. So we are planning events online. We are planning to showcase movies to students, which celebrate Black history, which celebrate Black culture, even action movies, considering good movies like Black Panther, because it does give you a sense of something like that. A focus group, a discussion, and similar to what we are doing now on the university level with certain societies, to make sure the conversation is there, to make sure the students are involved in the conversation. Also, me, the ex-president Bolu, and we're planning to include the vice chancellor in terms of sending out a message to students of what it means to him, and he's very supportive of it. So these are a few things. Nothing has gone online now, but a couple of other things are in process, and yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I could just add to what Ansha said is beautifully put it. So we also have the Access, Progression and Participation Plan, which is basically focusing on, the BAME and what we're doing. So we're also going to be organizing a focus group in the next couple of weeks to, not saying that, oh, we have a problem, but saying that what can we do to be better as a university. And in terms of the occasion, the beautiful one that we have, even though I know there's some people like, oh, I'm Black every time, why does it have to be a month? This month, our hot topic is focusing on Black History Month, and we're talking about colonialism and how it affects self-confidence, because that's something that is among, not just the Black community, but also like the people of color. Everywhere we have India, when you have a darker skin, there's a question as to whether you're deemed as beautiful or not. So so basically that's in a nutshell what, in addition to what Anne said, that we're doing.
Brilliant. That's lovely to hear that all of the Manchester universities are really trying to focus on listening to students, especially with the focus groups and the discussions that we're trying to have. And I think that is the really important thing, that we're not just professing that we're all fine, that we're all institutions that are absolutely perfect, because we know that we're not, and making sure that we're acknowledging that, yeah, we're not perfect institutions, but we are listening to our students, we're reaching out and trying to push forwards and see what we can do to help, is absolutely brilliant to hear. So I think that kind of leads on to the debate that we'll be having, and just more of just an open conversation between all of us. So we can start off with, how is colonialism still affecting society? I think that's one of the main points from the Pan-African Congress. They were trying to address the issue of colonialism. So if you want to start with that, I'll go to you, Kwame. How do you think colonialism is still affecting society?
Thank you very much. I think for us to really dissect this topic, we have to really understand what colonialism is, and then I think that, so my introduction, I definitely agree that whichever issue Black people, people of color or Black people are going through right now has strong link with the legacy of colonization. And I think I will defend that point by giving a small background to what colonization is, and then the impact that it's having on some of the issues that we are having today. So I think basically, when we talk about colonization, we are looking at the act or process of settling among indigenous people and taking control, establishing control over them. And I think that's one of the most simplest way to really talk about how some group of people chose to enter another geographical area without requesting their permission, without using visa, like it's requested today. They entered the African sub-region, the Indian sub-region, and everywhere without actually requesting permission to do that. They did not seek for permission. They didn't, apply for visa for doing that. They went there with the intention of claiming the things they never had. And some of the things they never had was labor, the labor that they thought they needed to be able to make use, sort of to feed the people, or to, for economic purposes. So that's how usually we will put it. And then we are talking about them also having the resources, the natural resources, the gold, the agricultural resources. They never had it. And so they came in there with that intention to do that. And so with that globalization idea in mind, for their own benefits, they were able to enter our places without permission. And then they forced us at gunpoint to be able to give away some of these resources to them. They enslaved the people within these sub-regions. And that's why people don't try to understand. They took the active labor, the active people in the active working group. They took them, they forced them, they put them in chains and transported them over the sea, to the West to come and work for them. And then how literature puts it, slavery, Black people, especially Black people and Indians that were sent to the US, they worked at the 100% tax. They paid 100% tax on every single thing that they did. And what we mean by that is that they worked without being paid. So if you work and you are not being paid at the end of the month, you've paid 100% tax on the wages that you were entitled to. So what happened was that when they also came, for them to be able to achieve this purpose, they changed our social structures. So they came and they introduced their own system of what they call education. They introduced that, and then they took us through it. They embedded their narratives in our minds. That is one of the things that happened. They came to make us understand another way of living, which is supposed to be their way of living. They set it as a standard, and then all of us were supposed to follow it, not with a choice, but at gunpoint. So some of the things that these things has influenced the issues that we are facing right now is how we are very divided geographically, because Africa actually was a country. Even if it wasn't a country, it was just one big place. But then they took us to Berlin and then chopped us on a chopping board. And then they didn't care whether they were cutting through tribes or not. They didn't care. They just cut us any way they wanted. And then we now became countries. So you have a country like Togo with 4 million, a population of 4 million, being put at the same table with the United States with over 300 million people to negotiate. How is that going to work? So people don't understand all these things. So they divided that geographically and then protected that geographical territory, because they treated each geographical area as a company. They had the East African company, the West African company, and all that. So they protected the borders such that we became enemies of each other. And so at the time that they even left, it became very difficult for us to come back together. Again, one of the things that is colonization is affecting us on is how we are unable to unite, because they brought the political system that gave Black people, that made us feel like we also had a chance of becoming leaders and not, giving leadership to just our chiefs. We had our chieftaincy where we could meet on a Sunday afternoon. We call it Deba. We agree that we are going to build a hospital, and all of us agree, and then we do it. But today, what is happening? Are we able to build a hospital on consensus? No. They were able to introduce that individualistic, like the individualistic way of thinking, to make everybody seek for their individual interest as opposed to society's interest. And so now you come back to our own places, we are unable to develop, because we are still holding on to that ideology that they implanted in our brains. Again, they introduced the classism. They made us understand that if you study and get this degree, and then you get this job, you are different from this person, you're different from that person. So I'm aspiring to get a degree just so I become the biggest person, not that I'm aspiring to get a degree to actually help society. So they also brought in this classism there. They also brought in colorism. And I think one interesting thing that people don't find around colorism is the fact that when they came, they raped some of our women. So they gave birth to people that weren't this dark. They came up with different shades of the dark color. So in the US, we had people that had to pass to become white. So if you are not too dark, you have to go to a particular city, you pass. So you can imagine passing to become white, so that you break the links with whichever families that you had, and you now become a white person. You get it? So that is why even within the Black community, we have the different shades of Black. It's like the lighter shade has some sense of superiority over the other. The lighter shade has some sense of feeling like he or she is more beautiful than the other. So, and then these are, again, the things that has been happening within the Black community today that were driven by the idea of somebody invading our country to force us to toe the lane that they felt was good. We look at the Black hair, the hair where we came, they made us understand how our hair isn't too nice. And the fact that you either cover it or you straighten it. And that over 90% of all the hair straightening creams are bought by Black people in the world. Over 90% of that are bought by Black people. So yeah, so I think clearly, this is the point that I want to use to say that some of the issues that we are facing as Black people that are enumerated were strengthened and perpetuated by colonization. And then until we do something about it, it's just going to be really hard. Yeah, thank you very much.
Very well put, Kwame. It was lovely to listen to your thoughts there. Anch, do you want to kind of go from there?
Well, thank you, Kwame, for your thoughts, and very, very thought-provoking. While you were speaking, I believe as Kwame said, and I am sure about what he said. He believes that colonialism still has an impact on how our lives function. And even if we go just a few years back, like the apartheid period, people were put in jail to express their views. Uh, Black people were not allowed to play in the South African cricket team till the 1990s. So you just see how bad the impact has been. And as Bolu discussed, how her grandmother is older than Nigeria's independence. These things tell you that despite India getting independence like 75 years ago and stuff like that, they have left such a mark that they have to be victim of their own mistakes. For example, Premier League, it's the greatest football league in the world, one of the best. Football players still are abused on the field, but they're English. Despite having, just because they have an African heritage or they're African or their skin color is black, is it right that bananas are thrown on the field? So you have to see, despite being the richest, despite having what they have, and such big football stars are abused. It's just a small example. And not respecting human lives and talking about white supremacy. Labor and slave trade is a big example. Women being raped, and I'm not being rude, and I respect British people, and I respect everyone, but people who have, killed innocent people, who have exploited natural resources, who have put generations backward, uh, are celebrated as heroes in this country. And Winston Churchill is the biggest example. And many other like him, they have statues of them. They talk about in the history books, political science, how great they were and what they did. In World War II, millions of Indians were killed because and other people from the other colonies were killed because England was the United Kingdom was fighting a war, and the innocent people were killed. And it's believed to be said, and I can be wrong, but when they have the remembrance, they don't even remember the Indian soldiers and the foreign soldiers who gave their lives away. So I think that has an impact till today, whether it's subtle jokes, their polite way of making fun of the hair, of the noses, of our color, and it has an impact on healthcare. It has an impact on education, and it has an impact on the political system as well as sports. So, well, as we said, all we can do is it will take a long time to bring everyone on an equal level, but we have to start educating ourselves that people who have killed millions of innocent people because of hunger, because of healthcare, are not heroes. They are villains, and they don't need to be celebrated. That would be a start. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Ange. Bolu, do you want to add some of your comments to that?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know what else to add, but they've said so many things, and I just wanted to just add a few things, because I think colonialism is still perpetuated till today in our everyday life, consciously or subconsciously. Because I'm Nigerian, I'm privy to some information. Right now, there's a British corporation right now in Nigeria trying to make some Nigerians redundant, because all of a sudden, due to we've been able to use internet to work from anywhere in the world, they're trying to sack these people in Nigeria to then employ their own people to work on the things that Nigerians are supposed to be working on. So, and someone say, oh, you know, it's all in the past, but no, it is now. You know, there's the thing called modern day slavery. A professional person working the same hours, the same job, doing the same duties back in Nigeria is not earning the same amount as the same person doing the same thing, carrying out the same job, working the same hours is in Britain. You know, taking all of those into cognizance, and me trying to pick a university, I have to be very conscious of, you know, what's the culture like? Are they accepting of people like me? Which shouldn't be the case till today. And all of that falls back, and it dates back to, you know, years and years ago. And like, I think it was either Kwame or Ash that said it. We've basically been at a disadvantage. How can we catch up to almost 450 years? How can we catch up to them, start building generational wealth for our children, their children? I feel like hundreds of generations of theirs to come are already settled. You know, you see some investment information, you wouldn't even be private to it because it's put into like an inner circle, and this creating this unnecessary societal standards that, like we were saying, you know, about we being scientifically called stupid. It's just to show that it's still there, it's still here, it's probably going to still be here in the next 10 years, because it's just these little things that we may not even think about that's still affecting us. I know when we're like, oh, sometimes the first time I ever tick Black African on an application, the first question I ask myself is, why is it important? Why do they need to know that I'm African? Is it not, are we not applying for job? What is this? I was like, it was strange to me because where I'm coming from, I've never had to tick African, because so I question the intention behind us actually ticking that form. Fine, some people's like, oh, just so that, you know, we can collate the ratio of the people that apply and to see if we're being inclusive, blah, blah, blah. We still tick it and you still don't pick it. I have a friend of mine, her last name is Scottish, right? So most of the time she already gets to the interview before they realize that she's Black. And you know, when you feel someone's feedback, they don't even have to say anything, but you know they're like, hi, ho. You know, like, well, you're Black. We didn't expect you to be Black. But at that point, you know, they can't do anything about it. And we've heard about situations where someone applies for a job, they don't give the person because of their race, and the same person using the same CV, the same qualification, and barely changing the name, applies for that same job and gets it. You know, so I feel like it's still, you know, perpetuated in our everyday life, whether it's consciously or subconsciously.
Brilliant, thanks for that. From my perspective, I really, really appreciate that Kwame did give us a bit of a description of what colonialism actually is and giving us that definition to start off with, so that we can see how it is still affecting our society. And I think one of the terrible things about the British education system is that we lack that understanding and we lack that knowledge of what colonialism actually is and how it has previously affected society and how it continues to affect society, and just understanding our own aspects of the trade, the slave trade, and understanding that it wasn't just the US that were part of the slave trade, that Britain has a lot to be accountable for, and that it's not just people on plantations, it's what's happening with that cotton from those plantations. The fact that Liverpool, Bristol were created using those industries, using Black people as labour, that we wouldn't have those industries, we wouldn't have those cities in Britain without slave labour. They wouldn't exist. And Liverpool is one of the largest examples of that, with the port there. And just the the sheer dehumanization of Black individuals, that you can read their names next to other items, basically like a shopping list. Like you'd have, okay, we would like a Black person, and then we would like some cotton, and then we would like some of this, just making it so that we're not even people anymore. And that level of trauma can't be wiped away by, I don't know how you can get away from that level of trauma, by basically making people not people, by making sure that you devalue them so much that the way that you are putting value to them is how much they're worth in sugar. That legacy isn't being taught and isn't being understood. So I think when you look at what the British are doing with their education system, is making sure that they don't understand colonialism, so that they can kind of brush it under the carpet, and you don't have that full connection to our own history, which is a real shame, because we don't really take any accountability. And it means that there is this standoffish nature whenever the topic of slavery is brought up, because we've not really gotten to the point where we've accepted that we were part of the slave trade at all. So if you can't accept that you were part of it and accept the actions that you did in the past, there's no way that you can get to the point of having the conversation. So if you can't get to that conversation point, then there's no way that you can move forwards from there. And I think another really important part of the way that colonialism is still affecting our society is in the mentality of appropriation, and how, knowing that, as Kwame said, it was going to different countries and taking control of their resources, their labor, and taking their identities as well, and stripping them of that. And I think now we're in a society that's very sensitive to all aspects, and making sure that we're trying to make sure that society isn't taking from us yet again. And I think this is most evident in the media, and looking at things like hairstyles, as you already said, and looking at how the Western world is still taking music, still taking the ideal westernized look, which is through tanning products. I don't understand sometimes when it comes to tanning products, when people are like, right, we don't want to have an affiliation with the Black community. However, we're happy to darken ourselves and still make fun of people who are darker than us. There's such a misconnect and disconnect there with the issues, and things like wanting larger lips, wanting just the aesthetic of a Black individual, and having that being taken. We're getting to the point where we are very sensitive, maybe oversensitive. I think sometimes society is very easy to jump on certain issues, but I think because of the way that everything has been taken from us, we've gotten to the point where we have to be sensitive and say that this is what is ours, and this is what we are bringing to the table. And yes, we want to share, and we want to be one human family, but we've got to also recognize that there is a strong history behind a lot of these different aspects, whether it's hair, whether it's music. There is a whole culture that if you just take from it, you're not appreciating, and we can't move forward. You're actually just being very disrespectful. So I think all of the conversations that happen about appropriation are that legacy of colonialism, and knowing that things have been taken before and continue to be taken, whether it's resources, whether it's culture, they are still being taken by a westernized community. So I think that's one of the largest examples of colonialism still in our society. Does anyone want to add any additional thoughts to that, or can we move on? Go for it.
Yeah, after you, Kwame.
No problem. Yeah, I think you raised very, very valid points. And it reminds me of, like, I write articles for the business newspapers in Ghana on cocoa, because like that is where my research area is. And then I realized what we did colonially was to devalue the aspects of the value chains that are situated in their colonies. So when you take coffee, for example, a cup of coffee that you buy here in Europe that costs, let's say, £2.50, the component of it that goes to the farmer is 0.01 pound, which is supposed to be 1 penny. And it's not just that. When you come to cocoa, for example, the cost component of a bar of chocolate that goes to the farmer is 3%. Okay, so what happened is that they were able to devalue the resources that we have and they redefine what natural resource is, that natural may be important, however, the cost is supposed to be so low because for some reasons we've not added value to it. So they have created that narrative around value addition being the aspect of the value chain that adds value, that one rather deserves more money, other than the very origin of that final product. So because without coffee, there will be no product called coffee. Without cocoa, there is no product in the world that we call chocolate. Yet they are the very ones that receive that little, how do we call it, little value. And then remember that they also commoditized the very things that generate us export revenue. And when you talk about commoditizing it, they have made those things, and those things are sold in the stock exchange. You get to the commodities exchange. So cocoa will be, the price of cocoa will be determined by demand and supply. And then we all know exactly what they do to control demand and supply, the hoarding and the rest to control the prices. So when you talk about colonization, people always think that we are just talking about enslaving people. We are talking about the deep-rooted systems that they put in place to make sure that even after they left, they will still be in control of us. And so that is why, regardless of what we do, they changed what we were producing. Like, we were producing what we eat. Definitely before they came, we were eating, we were surviving. But for some reasons now, until we import, we can't survive. Like, how is that supposed to be? But it's because that our lands, Uganda lands, were changed into producing cotton. And the cotton isn't something that they eat. So cotton they have to export. And if they use their lands to produce that, they have to export the very thing that they need to eat, which they should have planted. Ghana uses most of its lands to produce cocoa, yet we don't eat chocolate. So if you don't eat chocolate, who is going to make use of your cocoa? The consumer is going to have an upper hand on the price of it. So these are some of the very systemic things that colonization has done that people usually don't realize is actually the main reason why people of color are suffering. You go to the tea plantations in India and look at the value that they ascribe to tea, yet you see Lipton on the shelf. You know, in the UK, you see, look at the price. So I think I'm very happy that you brought up some of these points. You talked about, you know, some of the culture, our culture and other things that they appropriated, which are all good. And I think that currently what is even happening that actually just solidified the reason why we think colonization, the legacy of it is still is here, is COVID-19. Imagine COVID-19 happened. They could not believe that Africa is recording low figures. They could not believe, and we had a lot of news items actually seeing it as a miracle. In fact, some are actually even criticizing our leaders that, Africa is not recording high enough, not because their leaders did anything. You know, so the intelligence thing that we talked about again, they feel like we can never be intelligent to control some of these things. They are the only ones that will always come up with a solution. They couldn't just understand it. So that one alone is actually just a reason to let people know where colonization has taken us to. It's legacy that tells that the Black person, the people of color, do not have the requisite intelligence to be able to find solutions to problem. It's still reflecting because they can't just understand why Black people are not recording a lot of cases.
Right. And do you have a few comments after that as well?
Yeah, COVID-19 was something that was in my mind as well, and I wouldn't have placed it better. I would have worded it better than Kwame, but I think we need to have these discussions which make them uncomfortable. For example, when you were saying things, when you were talking about how people want to get a tan and be in a certain color, and because it's aesthetically pleasing and it makes them look part of a certain group, you know. And the same people, you know, in the Western culture use certain words which are derogatory to Black people. It's shameful, and we have to have those conversations and make them feel uncomfortable. Because, and we are not being oversensitive. We are just, they're just uncomfortable because they are not able to realize that, oh, why are they people finally speaking? It is very essentially important to be angry about it. Not being angry about it. Of course, you have different feelings, but raise your voice against it, because for many years, for hundreds and hundreds of years, people of color have been exploited. And if that makes them uncomfortable, they know that they have done something wrong. Yeah.
No, it's a really good point there. I think what is also quite interesting about this panel that we've got at the moment is that we've got 3 international students and myself as a home student. And I think what I would like to steer the conversation towards is, what did you guys kind of feel that the issues of colonialism were when you came to the UK? And I can kind of comment on behalf of well, trying not to be the representation of all of Britain, you know, but my experience of being a home student here and the education system in the UK, how were you guys kind of introduced to the issues of colonialism, either in your home countries or by when you came to the UK and your experiences there?
Well, I would start off by saying that I'm a history, political science student in India, so I have an idea about what the colonial rule did to my country. But of course, you don't hold anything against anyone when you come to this. Yeah, that happened and things change. That's what I believed. And there have been instances where, for example, I was wearing a cross in my neck and someone said, "Wrong religion, bro." A white person said to me. So there have been things like that have happened. And during the Manchester attacks, I was going in a bus and someone just banged on my window and asked me to go home and stuff like that. So things have happened, but I never hold anything against it. But it's, as we talk about it, wonderful things have happened. And this is a country of great opportunity and has given opportunity to a lot of international students. And I'm grateful for the education, the university and everything. But a couple of things that have happened with me, maybe I'm strong-minded and I don't really mind, but even that shook me, that how can someone say that to me? And you have that bad feeling when you feel your heart is sinking and stuff like that. So those have happened with me a couple of times. And I think that is, I don't know, but that is one of the reasons, and that is an impact of colonialism. That's an impact of rule and thinking that brown person can only be Muslim or of a certain religion and stuff like that. So I think that have been 2 of my worst experiences. But apart from that, this country, being a student here, you learn about polite. You learn about polite way of racism and how they talk about, how they think that we are scientifically not intelligent, while the NHS is like a lot of foreign people or a lot of immigrants running the National Health Service, a lot of doctors being from that. So you feel that while these things are happening, then why are we facing this treatment? But apart from that, there are a lot of microaggressions as well, as that is something that needs to be discussed. And I'm glad the University of Salford is doing, and that is a discussion that everyone needs to do about, because sometimes you pass comments and sometimes people say things like Kwame said, which was very thought-provoking. Why is it black market? What is black market? Why is it a black thing, a bad thing? So things like that are thought-provoking, and I have had my experience in this country, but I'm not taking away the fact that I have had fantastic opportunities. I've learned a lot, but those were my bad experiences that I would like to highlight. And when the Prime Minister says that women in burqas look like letter boxes and stuff like that, then in hijabs and stuff, you're setting the wrong example, and that spiked Islamophobia and stuff like that. So I think in the 4 years that I've been in this country, I've learned a lot. Have had a political interest, and conversations need to happen that makes the senior most people in the country uncomfortable, and they need to be corrected when they are wrong. So that's what I've learned.
Brilliant, thanks for that. Bolu, would you like to give a few of your comments as an international student as well?
As an international student, things that I've been aware of about colonialism from Nigeria growing up. I'm fortunate to, be born in Nigeria, very proud of it, because they actually tell us about the history. We know people like Lord Lugard and what he did. We still go to places in Nigeria where we see the slave trade. I think it's Takwabe. So we still go there. I went on school excursions to see this is, the slave trade and everything that happened. Told history about Jaja Okobo. Because sometimes when I came here, and I feel like I was having a discussion with somebody from Britain. She was Black, British. And she was like, yeah, but some of the African leaders at that time, some of you guys, Obas, were the ones that sold your people for mirror, sold your people for this. So, when I came here and I got that kind of vibe, I'm like, hold up, wait a minute, because you guys don't know history. There was somebody, do you know there was somebody called Jaja Okobo? He did not want to engage in slave trade. He said, my people are not for sale. And what did the British do? They took him on the boat, they poisoned him, and they killed him. And they took over that region. But and when I say this, person like, oh my God, I'm like, yeah, like Google Jaja Okobo right now, and you will see things like, so I'm fortunate to know that type of history and to know that my history was not curtailed. It was embraced, to know the reason why we changed our national anthem, to know the meaning behind, our coat of arms and, our flag. So I feel like coming here and I see the way Nigerians treat white people. We treat them like, even within our community, we treat them like, oh, they're high there. Once you see somebody is thinking, oh, they must be very intelligent, they must be very this, we treat them like egg. And this person, probably in Britain, is probably in working class or probably even lower than that. But just because of the color of their skin and they're coming from, abroad, we just, we have to, this person is not normal, this person, and I see that, and I came here, and nobody treated me like that. I'm like, hold up, wait. So is this why is it one-sided? I'm seeing like I come here and I'm just disregarded because of the color of my skin. Even when I come here, people that are white are still treated high in their own society more than, because I thought, oh, maybe it's vice versa. Maybe when a Black person come here too, they are treated like, oh my God. But that was not the vibe I got. And I never used to take offense to this when you get into a taxi and someone say, where are you from? Where are you originally from? Where are you originally from? Me, I usually tell them, but I feel like there was a friend of mine, and she was like, I was born here. Why do you have to ask me that type of question? But me, I was not sure I answered the question. Yeah, I'm Nigerian. I just tell them about Nigeria. I'm happy to share the culture. But I can see the way it affects, people that are actually born here. You ask me, where am I from? Excuse me, I have the British passport. People like that. But so I feel like sometimes those type of questions is unnecessary. Just carries the person to their destination. Why do you need to know where? Yeah, so where are you from? So there was one time I had time that day. I got into the taxi and I was going on. The person was like, oh, where do you stay or where are you from? And I'm like, oh, Bolton. I'm like, I stay in Bolton. And he'll be like, and the person like, And I was waiting for him. He was like, yeah, but where are you originally from? And I'm like, what's your business with my origination? How would it affect the taxi fare? Or how would it affect you doing your job? So one thing that really that really pained me, it gave me so much hurt, was Brexit. And I know it's politics, but I felt like the intention behind Brexit was from hate. And I didn't when you sit down and you look at it economically, it's not one of the smartest decisions that the country is taking. Because when they're like, oh, we'll put it in the NHS, and now you're asking them, where's the money for the NHS? And they're like, you can't really answer the question. So it just looks at, it's just because of so much. And you look at where I was fortunate to be in Nigeria the day the vote. I went home for holiday. I can never forget, it was in June. I went home for holiday and I was up. I was like, what is it? You're not even, look at you, you're up looking at the poll. I was up looking at the news to see what they would actually vote, because I was so confident. I'm like, no, they're smarter than that. They wouldn't vote for this kind of thing. And to find out that it's people of a particular age group that actually voted for it. And I look at so much, I'm like, even after these years, you still have so much despise for this ethnic group. And you say they're taking your job. Please, what job are you taking? You guys mainly rely on benefits. You're not working. And you're saying people are taking the job. Now that they have left the job for you now, are you guys gonna, because if I don't pay tax, if I don't pay these things that I pay, you will not be able to get the benefits that you are getting. So, that was really, and even like within institutions that we're in, not expecting things, like we said earlier, not expecting a person of color to do exceptionally well in their academia, because once you say black, you expect the least. And when this person is, you're like, oh, I actually like the way you do this, and I'm just like, you underestimate me. Sometimes it works in our favor, but more often than not, it doesn't work in our favor, because at the back of this person's mind, as much as we do not put our name on our assignments and things like that, they already have a grade that we should be getting. Before we even submit our paper, we've already been marked. And, and you get comments like, your English is actually very good. This is a very funny one. Because I tell them, if we take this English language test, IELTS, if you take this IELTS, I'm sorry, but you will fail because you don't know English. You say you're speaking this English, you are not even speaking the English that you think you are speaking. You are just talking. Most of them, they speak slang, like, oh yeah, quiz English. Not, when I came here, I was expecting to hear, I'm serious, I know it's funny. I was expecting to hear some nice, this type of English that we've been introduced to in Nigeria, quiz English. I'm like, I'm like, what's in it? What's in it? And I'm like, and someone said, and I asked one day, what's the meaning of in it? And I'm like, no, it's isn't it? And I'm like, you guys cannot say isn't it, you are saying in it. And the fact that they use it to almost every sentence, I'm like, it doesn't even make sense, you added this in it. So I feel like, looking at coming from Nigeria and the way in which, white people are being treated and being appreciated, and coming here and seeing that it's not the same energy, and now hearing some sentimental comments, maybe people are like, oh, you're actually quite intelligent, you're actually articulate, so you expect me not to be articulate because I'm black. And it's just, so I'm sorry that I went to just something.
No, it's really interesting hearing from international students and getting their reactions to Britain, and it's quite difficult as well as a British home student, hearing that these are the experiences that you guys have had, and also knowing that I think what's really interesting in hearing is that you are fortunate in the fact that you know your history and your involvement, whether it's the slave trade, whether it was the greats of your countries, you understand whether it's India and its tea or who your greats are. And I think what's really difficult about the English education system is we know our kings and queens and we know our figureheads. But myself as an A-level history student, I know more about German history than I know about British history and colonialism. And I think that's one of the main issues, is that we don't have that level of understanding of our own history. And if you don't understand yourself and your history, then you can't approach other people from different countries with any form of respect, because you just don't have that level of understanding, which is a real disservice to all races. It's not just to the white people, it's to every individual that's under the education system if they're not told about their history and the great impacts that BAME individuals have had throughout history, and to understand that really and truly, the Brits that portray themselves as, oh, we are so British. If you look at the history of colonization, to see that actually Jamaicans are more British than the Scots are, and you're literally like, you guys don't understand our impact or the fact that we are here and that we've been here for quite a while. So when you tell us to go back home, or just the polite version of that is, oh, where are you from? And it's literally like, I'm from Leicestershire, guys. I'm not from a different country. I've got Caribbean roots and I'm very proud of that. But also, I was born here. This is my country. And it's very difficult to have the same level of pride that I'm feeling from you guys about your countries when you're so proud of their history and being able to understand the good and the bad. Whereas with the Brits, the history is written by the victors. So history is only about being proud of the accomplishments. And I'm not saying that Britain didn't have accomplishments at all, and that there's nothing to be proud of. But if you don't understand the good and the bad, then you can't move forwards. And yeah, I think it's quite interesting hearing your responses to how you've seen colonialism as international students, and me being able to say that I've had similar experiences in regards to racism and the microaggressions of, oh, where are you from? And being underestimated as an individual because you are Black first. I think that's a commonality that we do share, but it's hurtful sometimes to have to sit back and appreciate that I'm British and this is what our country has done. Kwame, do you want to give us some of your thoughts there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I sort of totally agree to the point that we raised. And I think one interesting point that Bolo raised, I just wanted to say something a second about it, was Brexit. I think it should actually tell you how they created colonization. They gave a reason to enter other people's country. Yet they are the same persons creating the reason that no one else should be able to have the chance to enter their country. So you see the mismatch. So I just wanted to just raise that for people to think about it from that side. I think that as an international student meeting my fellow people of color here that were born here, I think the first thing I realized was that both of us have different experiences of colonization. So again, like I said, I am in Africa, so let's say I face the oppression. And then the one here was the one transported out of, let's say, Africa or out of India, and experienced something totally different within a new environment that I do not know of. So you realize that the information you know of me as an African is what the news media of the British shows you. And then the one that I also know of you is the movies. Is the movies that I watch of how Black people outside of Africa behave. So you realize that all of us are misinformed. All of us are portrayed differently. And that is what actually creates the conflict, because you are seeing me as an African on the media as poor, as corrupt, as, you know, all those terrible words. And when I'm also sitting in Africa, what I'm seeing of Black people outside of Africa is that they are lazy, they are criminals, they are killing people, they don't want to work and all that. And so this is how they've been able to find a way of making sure that our heads clash. So that anytime we come here, we are either arguing or fighting against each other. The second thing has to do with culture. So remember, like I think Bolu said, I share the same thing, like the way we are all proud of our country. Like you talked about graduation. Oh my goodness. I could not wait to put on my African print suit, which I represent everywhere to do it, because that is the pride that we hold in what we have. But then that is our culture. But again, a different culture has also been created for the Black people here. Remember, it's not their fault being here. Again, they were forced here. So they had no choice than to create a culture of their own that suits the environment that they are in. And so the misunderstanding is that when we come, because we're already misunderstanding each other in terms of how we are being portrayed, the Black person born here thinks that because he's associated with whites, and then the white already portrayed as superior, then he or she feels like he has some higher level of superiority than me coming from Africa, because already you're supposed to be poor. Do you actually sleep in houses? Are you sleeping in, trees and all those kind of things? So you realize that there is a mismatch. So we are all attacking each other wrongly, and in a way that we are all just sort of misinformed. So we are attacking each other wrongly. I think that is what is happening. Again, when it comes to names, I never knew nigger was a bad word as an African coming here. I didn't know until I came here. And that is the reality, because back in Ghana, where I am from, like we hear nigger in the movies. The movie, that is where we hear nigger from. We don't hear nigger in any bad sense. Maybe Bolu can confirm, but I honestly, we don't hear nigger in any bad sense. But it was until we came here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until we came here, they realized that no, actually, nigger as a word to maybe a Black person outside of Africa is a big issue. And I think that is where those of us coming as Africans are not supposed to just come in and feel like, oh, because we don't take it so badly, it's okay. No, we have to come in and feel like if our people hear things that is bad and they don't like it, we have to support them in doing that. So the idea is about we not supporting each other, misunderstanding each other, and then feeling creating a situation where at a point, this person, I'm superior in this situation. You also think you're superior in that situation. So I'm waiting for the time where, you fall into that, and I'll let you know that, you're not Black enough. If you are Black, if you are coming from Africa, you would have done this, and I think that one of the things even has to do with when we come here and we see another Black person claiming to be British, is we are like, really? You are British, like you are Black. So that is another thing that is hard for us to comprehend. But again, we don't understand why. If somebody could just explain why, because you feel like you have worked so hard in this country to deserve every single thing here. So you're not disclaiming Africa, but you feel like it is your sweat and blood that you've used to contribute towards this economy. And so you can't sit there and not be allowed to feel proud of what you might have worked for. Unfortunately, that this is where you were born. We don't understand that. So when we come, we are just looking at, why are you calling yourself British? And again, when you speak to some of the, when you speak to maybe people, like, you understand that it's even hard for the white person, the British here, to accept you, the Black person, as a British.
I think that's a really interesting point. And I think a lot of Black British individuals have that viewpoint. As I said, my heritage is Caribbean, German and Jamaican. I've got quite an interesting heritage, but I am British. I was born in Britain. And having that disconnect, I do find that quite interesting, that you wouldn't see us as British sometimes, but also knowing that the British don't see us as British as well, and saying, why don't you go back home? It's actually, no, this is my home. None of us choose where we're born. Exactly. This is where we've landed, kind of thing. And I think it's more of the fact that if you're coming over now, it's as immigration, whereas our ancestors were imports. It wasn't immigration, it was you were a product and you were an import here. Yes. And I think that mentality, which is the legacy of colonialism, continues. And I think looking at the BAME British community and trying to see how they fit in, and trying to claim that pride in their country, I think because Britain doesn't have pride in the advancements and the achievements of their Black BAME history, if you can't have pride in that, then you as a Black British individual don't know where to take your British pride from, and having that nationalism of the flag and having that patriarchal viewpoint doesn't connect to us in the same way. Whereas, as you guys said, with the clothes that you wore for graduation and just the evident pride of your countries, it is a very interesting conversation to have. I don't mean to cut us off, but it does look like we've come to the end of our hour.
I wanted to make a joke.
Oh, sorry. Go on, go for it.
Trevor Noah was making a joke the other day, and he was like, when you come to Africa and someone calls us nigger, we're just like, oh, nigger, like, is that your name?
It's so, because I personally find it, I don't even say it, like I will always refer to it as the N-word, because I find it so visceral and so disgusting as a
I
word.
know.
And it's one of those that you hear in media and people just brush past, and it's like, no, do you realize that that's a derogatory term that we have to hear on a daily basis because it's in your music and it's fine for you guys to say? And it's like, no, this is hurtful and painful.
Exactly.
But not understanding that there is this miscommunication. And yeah, I do. I have watched that sketch with Trevor as well.
You went to Great Britain when it was like, oh yeah, they call it Great Britain, and all of a sudden you say we should come and see your country is Great Britain, and now we're coming to see your country is Great Britain. Like, no, don't come again.
just a thing that I would like to add, like just a short, quick one. I as international students come here, but we are talking what things could be right in England, but even the impact has been so bad in India that people who speak English it's a social class. And when I see international students coming here, I just speak in my language because I am very proud of the language I speak. Well, it's just my language, and I don't feel happy when someone says, "Oh, you have got a great command on the language." That's not my language. Just speak it professionally, and I believe that the sad part is I don't know my future in this country. But one thing that I know, that something that Indians feeling pride in speaking English is something that is an impact that if it would change, like as a foreigner, I just believe that it's shameful that, and even in schools it's been taught like that. So I think their impact is everlasting, and I don't think education system will change anytime soon. It's good to speak multiple languages, but yeah, just one thing as international students, people not having the pride in speaking Hindi. Like, sorry, that's one of the languages I speak. There are many languages in India, but that's one of the things. So yeah, sorry, yeah.
No, don't apologize. That's a brilliant input. And I do really appreciate that you ended on the education system, because I think when we're looking at the legacy of colonialism, the only way that we can truly understand it is by looking at that education system. And I do find it very interesting seeing the British education system versus that of international countries, and how that does affect that society's views of its own individuals. And I think that is where your country's pride comes from, and being able to recognize the representation in the past and carry that torch forward. So I'd just like to put a final thank you for all of you for partaking in this panel debate and sharing your views on the legacy of colonialism on our society. So that's just a final note from me, and thanks again.
Nana's kitchen. The powdery ash was the only odd thing. Pots of clay had changed colour. Constant touch with wood and stone. Brows of sweat are made here. Back of hands to wipe the salty liquid. Burnt palm oil bleached in stew. Tomato, pepper, onion and meat. Into the sea of colored water. Some sprinkle of crayfish. The walls are covered in soot. Roofs of straw offer shelter. It was a place of memory. We gathered to eat from here. Some on the ground, others on stools of Iroko that have stood the seasons. Laughter and joy dance in harmony at Nana's kitchen.
So thank you very much for joining us for this event. I hope that your 3-4 hours spent here has been useful. I hope you've learned a lot of things about Pan-Africanism. The last thing that we all have to do is to take the mantle call to action, and then make sure liberation is something that every human being has. Freedom belongs to everybody, not just a cross-section of the people. So go out there and be the change maker and make sure that every other person coexists in this world peacefully and equally. Thank you.
Freedom!